What's up Nakama, welcome to the part 4, of What If Luffy Had Koby Join His Crew, Chapter 7. I don't know what Igaram told you, but I can't thank you enough, Vivi Nefertari panted as the cactus rocks of Whiskey Peak fully vanished into the fog of the night, and even that was soon to be only a speck in the distance. The princess knelt by the Mary's railing, her grip making her knuckles white as tears ran down her face. Igaram was still there, on the island, injured and surrounded by so many agents of Baroque Works. Was he still alive? And what of Mr. Nine and Miss Monday? Despite her feelings, every piece of diplomacy she had learned since she was little screamed at her to get on the good side of these pirates fast, lest she lose her only chance now. She turned to the crew. If there is any way I can repay you for what you're doing, please name it. Well, money is always nice, Nami suggested without a hint of shame. You're the princess of a big country, so 1 billion beerus sounds about right. 1 billion? Usopp balked, having never considered an amount of that size. Such a price could buy his entire home island, after all. I don't know if I can give you that, Vivi muttered as she turned to face her saviors, one hand grabbing her opposite arm. See, my country is currently locked in a civil war caused by Baroque Works. They use the special chemical called dance powder to cause an endless drought and manipulated events to frame my father King Cobra. Many people believe he is the one behind it and the resistance grows with each passing day, even though my father has drained our coffers trying to keep the people alive. Igaram and I infiltrated Baroque Works to get a hold of this information and I need to get it back to Alabasta. All I ask is that you take me there, and I'll give you everything I have. This seems risky, Jin commented, leaning nonchalantly against one wall. There were a lot of agent guys back there, and it sounded like it was only one base out of many. Who's behind all of this? No, I certainly can't tell you, the Blionette replied, turning away to stare off over the sea. He's one of the most fearsome men in this ocean, a man of cunning to the point of brilliance. His intellect is only rivaled by his evil, and he's been plotting how to take over the desert country of Alabasta for the past 5 years. If I told you his name, you'd also be put on his hit list. Everyone knows him as Mr. Zero, and he claims his ultimate goal is to recreate Alabasta into a perfect paradise, with him as the unquestioned dictator on top. It's nothing but a lie, though. Come on, Zoro yawned, completely unperturbed by the princess rambling. He can't be that tough. Not that tough? Vivi demanded, spinning to look the swordsman dead in the eye. You wouldn't be acting so tough if you knew Mr. Zero was Crocodile, of the 7 warlords, Mr. Bushido. What? Nami, Usopp, Jin, and Koby panicked. The princess gasped and covered her mouth, as if the action would take back the information she'd just given away. Crocodile? Koby demanded, his face rapidly switching between fury and panic. A warlord? Jin asked, falling against the wall. His eyes grew unfocused, his mind no longer in the present. Why you can't be serious? Usopp stuttered. Oh, I'm afraid she's quite serious, a seductive voice affirmed as the Mary fully exited the fog. The woman, who was sitting on the second level railing, was about 5'8" and dressed in a purple skirt and vest that exposed her stomach. Her feet were covered in white boots and a white cowboy hat rested on her head, shading her blue eyes and the top of her neck-length black hair from the sun. A long, white, fur coat hung from her shoulders to her feet. All the pirates instantly readied whatever they fought with, Jin finding it in himself to push away from the wall. Miss All Sunday, Vivi squeaked. WH, what are you doing here? H, how did you get here? Who are you and what are you doing on my ship? Luffy questioned. She's gorgeous. Sanji swooned, doing his noodle dance. If you make any sudden movements, I'll knock your head off. Jin threatened, spinning his tonfa into an aggressive stance. Koby and Zoro, as well, drew their swords and prepared for battle. I saw your friend Mr. 8 just a little bit ago, Miss All Sunday said, disregarding their statements. He wasn't looking too good, you know? What did you do to Igaram? The princess demanded. Nothing at all, Miss All-Sunday waved off with a sly smile. I really didn't need to, he had enough injuries to kill a normal person. Vivi, who is this woman? Nami asked. That's Miss All-Sunday, the princess explained, her worry for Igaram currently overpowering her fear of the top female agent. She's the partner of Mr. Zero. We followed her to learn his identity. Actually, I let you follow me, the woman corrected, still as nonchalant as ever. I just want to see what will happen from this. Will the princess be able to save her kingdom from the big, scary predator, or will it crumble to dust and ruin despite her best efforts? Miss All-Sunday gave a smile, something moving just behind Luffy. Before he or the crew could see it, much less react, whatever it was lifted his hat and flung it through the air like a frisbee. The agent caught it easily, plopping it over her own hat. You're stepping on a mine, Nami warned, one arm on Luffy's shoulder as he frowned, his eyes drilling holes through their uninvited guest. Though she wasn't restraining him in any way, the navigator's touch was enough to keep him from outright attacking. You better give that hat back before we make you touchy, Miss All-Sunday chuckled. I've had our spies dig up information on you, Monkey D. Luffy. You and your little straw hat pirates are what makes this game more interesting. I know any other pirate crew would run or fail, but you lot already have an impressive track record. You beat Arlong the Fishman, after all. She leaned forward, Luffy's hat tilting on her own as if taunting them. But if you're going to make this interesting for me, you need to reach Alabasta, and you're not going to get there if you follow your log pose to the next island. Here. She held out what looked like a hourglass, but rather than sand, there was a needle pointing in one singular direction. Take this eternal pose to Namiwasho and skip Little Garden. If you go there, we wouldn't need to lift a finger to end your resistance. Keep your pose, Luffy growled, stretching his arm forward to take his hat back. Miss All-Sunday didn't so much as flinch. I'm the captain and I don't trust you. We're going to Mini Garden. Little Garden, Koby corrected. Yeah, that's fine, Miss All-Sunday responded with a shrug. I think you'll find a way to Alabasta anyway. I wish you the best of luck, seeing as you'll need it. Farewell. She hopped off the side of the ship and onto the back of a large turtle with a saddle and a cowboy hat. The turtle swam off, leaving the pirates to their devices. Well, that was rude, Jin commented, his weapons lowering. So, where are we going to next? She just called it Little Garden, Nami answered. Do you know anything about it, princess? Nothing, Vivi replied. I hope she was just trying to scare us. 5 days passed on the Going Merry, each of them just as crazy to the crew and company. The weather was never consistent for more than a half hour, and more than once were the pirates forced out of bed in the middle of the night because of a storm, but the chaos and Vivi's willingness to help quickly made her as much of a crew member as anyone else aboard. The blue-haired princess was now accustomed to the happy-go-lucky tune of the Straw Hat Pirates, a tune that quickly turned serious as Usopp shouted about an island in the distance. The crew, princess, and Duck assembled on the deck as the ship pulled into a river that led deeper into the island, thick greenery rising from the shore on either side. Above the treetops in the distance stood two mountains, both as white as sun-bleached bone and with multiple holes that must have led to impressive cave systems. Bestial roars echoed through the jungle, each one making Usopp and Nami jump. Their fear only worsened when a tiger 5 times as large as any tiger should be limped out of the tree line. It growled at the ship, only to wince as the blood dripping from its stomach began to form a puddle under its body. With a final wheeze, the tiger kneeled over, exposing the deep scratches that had caused its demise, its eyes losing their light. Oh, hey, Luffy blinked as the rest of the crew stared in shock. Free meat. Luffy, you can't, Nami began, only for a massive, winged reptile with a pointed beak to swoop down from the sky, grab the tiger in its claws, and return to the air. Only the puddle of blood was left behind to show that the feline had even existed. That bird thing took my meat. Luffy fumed. It was a bird that didn't have any feathers. That's weird and cool. I can feel my don't go on that island disease acting up. Usopp shivered, grabbing the mast. If I go on that island, I'll die. You're silly, Usopp, Luffy laughed. Come on. Let's all go explore the island. We should not. Nami argued. We don't know what could be waiting out there to kill and eat us. I say we wait here on the ship until the log pose resets. As much as I wish we could, Nami Swan, we don't have that option, Sanji replied, lighting a cigarette. Our food stores are running low and won't get us to the next island, no matter how much we try to ration. That means we're going hunting, Zoro grinned. Sanji, I'm going exploring, Luffy grinned. Make me a big pirate lunch with plenty of meat. Anyone else want to come? May I? Vivi asked, Karyu the duck quacking objections beside her. Getting out there and seeing what there is may help distract me from worrying about my country. No way. Nami denied. For one thing, Luffy is my gullible idiot. I'm not going to let his charismatic ass walk around alone with another woman. For another thing, we have been charged with your protection until we reach Alabasta. If you die, we don't get paid. If you wanna come, sure, Luffy shrugged, completely ignoring Nami's reasons. Luffy. You don't have to worry about me, Vivi insisted. I'll take Karyu with us. He's the fastest thing in all of Alabasta, way faster than anything in that jungle. And highly trained. He's the leader of the supersonic duck squadron, after all. Wah. The duck affirmed, puffing out his chest, the praise making him forget the dangerous forest he'd just been volunteered to enter. Well, alright, Nami conceded, turning an eye on the intelligent duck. He'd be an appropriate third wheel, she supposed, and Luffy wouldn't try anything anyway. She nodded in acceptance as Sanji emerged from the kitchen, offering the trio backpacks of bagged lunches. Come on! Luffy cheered, jumping down to the shore and running toward the trees. Let's go. Luffy. Vivi called after him, hopping onto Karyu's back and urging the duck forward in chase. Wait for us. Why was I even concerned about Luffy? Nami wondered as they disappeared into the foliage. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't even know about any desires except adventure. Well, I'm going for a walk, too, Zoro announced, jumping off the Mary. We need food and I'm gonna go catch something way bigger than anything the shit chef could catch. That sounds like a challenge, stupid moss, the chef growled. Lightning seemed to tie their gazes together, Koby and Jin glancing each other's way. I've got a bad feeling about this, Jin muttered. Maybe it is a challenge, Zoro continued. Hell, the shrimp could catch something bigger than you could after the training I gave him. Please leave me out of this, Koby moaned. So that's how it's gonna be, huh? Sanji snarled. Then let's go. You and Koby will be on a team and I'll take Jin with me so neither of us can cheat. The group that brings back the most meat wins. Deal, the swordsman agreed. Shrimp, get down here. Yes, Zoro-sensei. The boy scrambled down the Mary's ladder, Jin and Sanji following. Within moments, the two pairs disappeared, leaving Usopp and Nami alone on the ship. The challenge and subsequent departure happened so fast, it was only after they were gone that the navigator and sniper realized that all the muscle had left them. They froze, making eye contact. We're gonna die, aren't we? Usopp questioned. Not me. Nami answered, running into her room and locking the door, much to Usopp's panic. Nami? He yelled, pounding on the door. Nami. There was no answer, the silence around him broken by the calls of megafauna in the distance. The ground rumbled, the sound repeating again and again while growing in force until Usopp could feel it on the ship. Something massive was approaching. Well, what do we have here? Gabba-baba. Zoro-sensei. Koby yelled, panic beginning to set in as he ran through the trees of Little Garden, a giant lizard with a sail-like spine and a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth chasing after him. It had 2 cuts across its flank and was missing an eye, where the rosette had tried to scare it off previously. but that only served to make it mad. Even with its injuries, it was faster than Koby was, but the pirate was much more nimble than the dinosaur, an advantage he had to make full use of to avoid becoming the creature's next meal. Inwardly, Koby cursed his teacher's competitive nature, the man having gotten lost in his want to go kill some big-ass lizards. Zoro-sensei. Help. I don't like this island. The tree Koby had just pushed off of in his race to escape shattered under the force of the lizard chasing him, forcing the rosette to focus more on running for his life. Casting his eyes around for anything that could help, Koby spotted a vine connected somewhere in the canopy. Deciding he didn't have much to lose in this situation, he grabbed it as he passed, his momentum curving upward. The lizard ran under him, snapping at Koby's feet but with too much speed to just stop. Planting its feet, the Dimetrodon tried to turn, only to trip on a large root and topple onto its side. That mistake proved to be fatal, a Spinosaurus appearing from the underbrush and diving into the Dimetrodon's exposed belly. Koby breathed a sigh of relief as he reached the apex of his impromptu escape, but his calm was short-lived as gravity returned. He clenched his lips together to keep from screaming, silently cursing the island of Little Garden to every believed-in punishment in the world. His iron-tight grip on the vine held as, like a pendulum, it swung the other direction. Shit. Koby hissed as his ride smacked him into a tree, dropping the pirate into a thick branch. Acting quickly, Koby shimmied deeper into the leaves and turned, confirming that the Spinosaurus was too busy with its larger meal to care about him. Zoro-sensei, where the hell are you? I'm gonna give you a piece of my mind later. Still simmering with fear and anger, Koby felt the adrenaline start to fade, his breath coming out in ragged gasps. His rest was interrupted, however, by the rumbling of his stomach, reminding the boy that he hadn't eaten before their sudden competition and the subsequent run for his life. Much to his luck, the tree he'd landed in seemed to be a fruit tree, an ancient ancestor to apples or pomegranates by the looks of it. With nothing else to sate his palate, except maybe some leftover raw meat from his former pursuer, Koby reached for a fruit, wiped it off on his shirt, and bit into it. Koby's eyes widened as the sweet, citrus-white taste of the fruit registered, several more of the small, purple-red plants quickly disappearing down his throat. They were so good, unfortunately, that Koby stopped studying them as he continued, the last one he grabbed having a different color scheme. Its color was more of a greenish-gray, swirly patterns dancing over the peel. 3 white stem-like protrusions poked out of one side in a triangular formation, 2 on the top and 1 underneath. Koby bit into it and promptly turned green at the taste. It was the worst thing Koby had ever eaten in his short life, the urge to vomit filling his being. Nevertheless, he swallowed out of instinct. A strange, tingly sensation started at his stomach and extended to the rest of his body as the remainder of the fruit fell from his hand. Green-gray scales, the same color the fruit had been, sprouted from Koby's skin, quickly covering all his skin save for his stomach and the palms of his hands. He gained weight as well, quickly becoming too much for the branch he was on, which snapped, dropping him to the ground where he continued to writhe as the transformation continued. The boy's mouth elongated, his lips hardening into a sort of beak while his forehead extended upward and flattened out, his hair shrinking into his altered head and his glasses widening to reach his now slitted eyes. Koby's hands and feet changed as well, his middle and ring fingers fusing together and his thumbs twisting around to become the only projection on the opposite side. A tail tore through the backside of his pants, becoming half the length of his body. Finally, 3 horns grew from his face, 2 out of his hardened forehead over his eyes and 1 from his nose. What the hell, what the hell, what the hell? Koby tried to scream, only for his words to come out as a series of grunts and roars. His arms flailed in an attempt to get to his feet, but all he saw in his now blurred vision were trunk-like legs where his arms and hands should be. Freezing, Koby tried to understand what had just happened to him. He was on his side, his appendages all in front of him. The position should have been far more uncomfortable, but based on his arms, he wasn't human anymore, most likely through the effects of his own fruit. Trusting instincts he had not had before, Koby held himself to his feet, all four of them, and his vision cleared. He followed the sounds of a bubbling stream off to his left. The water was clean and clear, offering him a clear reflection of his new form. A triceratops. Koby muttered to himself in those animal grunts through his new beak, looking at every angle he could. Thankfully, the good majority of his clothes were still intact, though his shoes were gone. His swords were still in their sheaths on his back, but they wouldn't help him much compared to the three horns that now stuck out from his face, which lacked his glasses. What did the book call ancient fruits? Dragon? Yeah, dragon fruits. I guess I ate the dragon fruit. Ancient zone model triceratops. Now the big question is, how do I turn back? In hindsight, it's not that far-fetched for an ancient zone to be on Little Garden, as it was an island of dinosaurs untouched by human civilization, but this thought was not relevant to Koby's problem. The young swordsman tried to sift through his memories of the transformation to see if there was anything he could use to try to change back into his human form. There had been a sensation, a tingly one in his stomach right before it started. He latched onto that, willing it to come again and alter his form, though he wasn't very specific about what he wanted. The young swordsman shrunk until he was just over his average height, and his hands and feet changed back to normal with the exception of being slightly larger and having scaly skin. His tail was still there, but smaller, now only about 1.5 feet long and slowly wagging back and forth as he shifted his balance. His lips had not returned and were a small beak, a miniature curve still present. The fringe of a forehead shrunk and sprouted his hair, said hair in the back and hidden from the front view, and the triad of horns were half the length they were before but just as sharp, about half the length, of his swords. Now in this new hybrid form, Koby was able to stand and inspect himself better. Well, Koby told himself before the panic could return. I didn't like swimming anyway. Wait. My glasses. I don't need them? Get your head out of your ass and your hair out of your eyes and you'll see that my kill is clearly bigger. Zoro yelled, butting heads with the blonde chef. His finger pointed at the T-Rex-like lizard said chef had killed with Jin as witness. My Dino has more meat than that pathetic excuse of a lizard. You better go get your eyes checked, mushhead, Sanji growled back, pushing his forehead harder against Zoro's as their scowls deepened. The cook pointed at the triceratops Zoro had hunted. Yours has nothing but fat. If I tried to cook that, it'd shrivel up to nothing. And mine is longer. Sanji, Zoro. Jin tried to placate. Please, calm down. And where is Koby? The shrimp went and got lost, Zoro replied. After Whiskey Peak, I know he can take care of himself, but that means I caught this without help, while Jin helped you, Dartbrow. He did not. Sanji denied. And the deal was whichever group brought more meat, but Jin didn't help because I didn't need it. Then he should be a safe third party. So, Jin. Whose catch is bigger? I'd really like to stay out of this, Jin tried, both Zoro and Sanji rounding on him. Which one, Jin? The arguing pair demanded in sync. Luckily for Jin, he wasn't forced into answering when a shockwave raced over the trio, bird calls around them going silent as all attention was redirected to two hulking forms in the distance. They were humanoid, one with a sword and a long beard and the other on the wider side with an axe. Both of them were also easily 300 feet tall at least. Though they were fighting, there was no air of hatred and no feelings of malice in the air. Even so, their attacks were still tremendously powerful, not something they wanted to get the crew involved in. 200 Beerus says Luffy's involved and Vivi's in danger, Zoro bet. We aren't getting out of this, Sanji sighed. Vivi, I'm coming to save you. Jin. The pair yelled, getting into running stances for the inevitable competition finding Luffy and Vivi would turn into. Take the meat back to the ship. Jin, come hunting with us, the former Krieg mocked as they vanished into the forest. Jin. Which one is bigger? Jin. Be the pack mule. I need to up my training. Resigning himself to his immediate fate, The man-demon grabbed one horn and one tooth and, with a grunt of exertion, started dragging the dinosaur corpses back to the ship. Koby froze as a shockwave rumbled through the ground, every one of his new instincts screaming at him to run away in terror before whatever made that shockwave found him. Though the instincts were such a strong impulse, they were also so new that he could tell that they wouldn't help him in this instance. In fact, if sailing with the Straw Hats had taught him anything, it was that doing the opposite and going toward the apparent danger was the fastest way to find his crew again. "Can I be human again?" he asked his fruit, as if expecting an answer as he tried to change once more. He did not get his wish, instead turning back into a full Triceratops. He sighed, trying to figure out how running on all fours would work before deciding that time could be of the essence. With a relative shrug in what he chose to call his Dino mode, the new zone trusted his instincts and began tromping off toward where the giants were battling while making sure his glasses were safely tucked on the neck of his shirt. The jungle was dense, and more than once did he have to outmaneuver predators and rival males, but the giants' battles over however long they'd been here had made plenty of clearings for the Rosette to keep track of his distance and location in relation to them. The ground shook once more as, with a pair of mirrored sucker punches, the giants called their 73,466th duel a draw. At the same time, Koby felt his body shrink, face planting from his momentum. He groaned, spitting out dirt as he pulled himself up. He blinked, the world only the indistinct watercolors he saw when he didn't have his glasses. "Aw damn it," he hissed, his hands patting the ground around him. His fingers touched the smooth plastic of his frames, the boy placing them back where they usually go. The world snapped into focus, including his normal hands. It seemed that his body had finished adjusting to his new powers. "Oh, I'm human again." Looking around, Koby saw the giants once more in less clarity than he'd had while running, both of them going in opposite directions. Intuition, or was it instinct? Dash guided Koby as he took his glasses off again and slowly grew back into his Dino mode, trailing right to follow the giant with the long beard. Knowing Luffy, he'd want to climb it, probably. Kick. "So Broggy's guests are friends of yours, eh?" "I guess that makes sense. We don't get many visitors." He described them as a man with a long nose and a woman with orange hair. Blue Ogre Dory the giant was a mountain of a man standing at nearly 500 feet with tanned skin. His black beard covered much of his Viking-like armor, nearly touching the ground, and a blue cape flowed down his back. A helmet, sword, and shield, each supersized to fit a giant, sat next to him, even bigger than the casket of ale he was drinking from. The ale itself was from the Mary, but it had passed through the hands of the other giant, Broggy, before reaching Dory. Laughing with the giant in his campsite of nearly 100 years were Luffy, Vivi, and Karyu. "That's Usopp and Nami," Luffy explained. "They're members of my crew." "Eh, Luffy?" Vivi asked, the captain taking a bite out of the absolutely massive haunch of dinosaur meat Dory offered him. "I've been meaning to ask, but I wanted to confirm something. Are you and Nami together?" "What do you mean? Like together? I still don't get it." "She's asking if you like kissing your little lady friend," Dory explained with a wry grin. "Oh," Luffy blinked. "Yeah, we are." "May I ask how you got together?" Vivi questioned. "Sure." There was silence. Luffy blinked. Vivi blinked. Dory blinked. Luffy blinked again. Well, what? How did you get together?" Vivi's lips thinned, a clear sign to anyone except Luffy that she was annoyed by his answers or lack thereof so far. "Oh," Luffy blinked, oblivious. "This fishman bastard named Arlong was holding her village hostage and forcing her to be his navigator, but that was stupid of him since she's my navigator. Nami finally asked for help, so I jumped in and kicked his fishy, blue ass. She kissed me after the battle." "That's so romantic," Vivi gushed, stars in her eyes. "That's like so many fairy tales I read as a kid, where the hero sweeps in with his knights and saves the princess." Don't call me a hero. Luffy denied quickly. Heroes have to share their meat and are selfless and stuff, but I wanna keep all the meat for me and my friends. I only helped Nami because she asked for it, because friends rely on each other. I'd do the same for any of them. Well, I wouldn't let them kiss me like Nami did, but you know what I mean. Gikyayak. Dory laughed. I like you, Straw. Dory didn't finish the sentence, the barrel of ale in his hand exploding violently. Dory! Luffy and Vivi yelled. The giant hissed, the heat burning his left hand and the left side of his face. Concerned, the pirate, princess, and Duck ran to the giant's side. The smoke cleared quickly, revealing, the giant doubled over with his left eye closed completely and burns covering his hand. His lips were pulled into a grimace of pain. Are you okay? Vivi asked, though the answer was clear to see. Hold still. You and I will find a river for you to wash those. Who did that? Luffy raged. When I find them, I'll kick their ass so hard, they'll taste my sandal for a week. Before Luffy could say more, however, the volcano of the island erupted for the second time that day, signaling the start of another duel. How unlucky, Dory muttered, straightening and turning his good eye to the flowing lava. We rarely get two duels so close together, and after such an accident. I guess Elbaf has finally made his choice. No way. Vivi denied. You can't go fight in your state. Someone trapped that alcohol. I must fight, Dory responded with a shake of his head. Even if I am to lose, even if I am to die, I cannot forsake my honor after so many years. Why are you even fighting in the first place? The princess asked, hoping beyond hope that delaying the giant could stop him from walking into what had just turned into a hopeless fight. You know, Dory began with a sad and, still pained smile, I don't even remember. Neither does Broggy, but it must have been something important. That's why I can't stop now. 73,466 duels we have fought, and I suppose the 73,467th is to be my last one. But do not interfere, Dory ordered, seeing the anger in Luffy's movements. Taking it a step further to confirm the sanctity of his fight, Dory tipped over his shield, pinning Luffy under its weight. With his hand the way it was, Dory wouldn't be able to use it anyway. Seeing that the rubber man was sufficiently contained and that the princess did not have the means to interfere even if she could follow on her duck, the blue ogre stood, ready for his own death. Man, this sucks, Jin complained, dragging the dinosaurs Zoro and Sanji had dumped on him. He supposed it was good exercise, but he had cuts and bruises from all the predators who had come to try to take the meat from him. He hissed with every other step, blood from a bite from a velociraptor or something like it flowing down his right leg. To top it off, some bug would not get away from his neck. He growled, ripping a part of his shirt off to replace the cloth bandage he'd had on his leg. His moment of pause allowed him to see the shady figure out of the corner of his eye near a tree. Zoro? He questioned, tying off the makeshift bandage and limping toward the figure. I thought you ran off with Sanji, though knowing your sense of direction. He drew closer and immediately noticed something was wrong. Oshi! The figure exploded. Get away! Nami and Usopp cried in unison, running as quickly as adrenaline could make them. On their trail was a cat nearly the size of the tiger they'd seen when entering the island, though this one was of the saber-toothed variety, which was not good news for the pirates. Nami's bow was useless against such an opponent and Usopp's pellets were only a little more effective. Damn it! Nami yelled. If Broggy had left any meat, we wouldn't be in this situation. But we are, so what does it matter? Usopp shouted as the pair jumped over a log. He turned, losing sight of the navigator as he took aim at the beast while in midair. Triple lead star. True to his skill, all three of the pellets met their marks, but they did scant more than ensuring the sniper had the cat's full attention. It growled as Usopp took off again, unaware that he had been abandoned as bait. I will never forget your sacrifice, Nami prayed from where she was laying beside the fallen log. Usopp was fast and crafty, so he would be fine. Probably. Now relatively safe, though nowhere out of the woods, Nami surveyed the area, finding a tall tree that would give her a decent view of the island. It needed to be mapped, after all. Satisfied with her studies several minutes later, the pirate began making her way down the tree. The branch she claimed for a foothold, however, was not quite as sturdy as she thought it was, the wood giving way beneath her. She screamed. "No need for that," a gentle, female voice chuckled, slim but strong arms arresting her momentum. "Thanks," Nami breathed, only to then register the situation. "Wait, you're? Kai-ha-ha-ha. Of course, the crab cook had to go and get himself lost," Zoro grumbled, every tree around him looking the same. The swordsman had no idea where he was, but that wasn't his fault. The giants kept moving their duel every time he looked away. Why couldn't they just fight in one place and make things easier? "Geez, I'm sure the Mary is around here somewhere." A stick snapped somewhere off to the man's left. Yeah, left. Off the starboard side, where the sun was dipping toward the south. The swordsman turned, Wado Akamanji already in his hand, but the weapon proved to be unnecessary. Standing by a tree was Jin, one hand held up in a wave. Zoro relaxed, resheathing his sword. He stepped closer. "What the hell, Jin? Don't tell me you got lost like the blonde boy toy? Where's the dinos we killed?" He paused, noticing the braided red hair of a girl hiding behind his crewmate, who had yet to move. "Who's the squirt?" "Sorry," the girl apologized, the paintbrush in her hand already moving. "Nothing personal." The clashing of sword and axe echoed over the forests of Little Garden, Luffy and Vivi unable to do anything about the injustice that had decided its winner. Luffy growled from his place under the giant shield, trying to wiggle his way free without any luck. Vivi and Kiryu tried to help, but the object was simply too big for them to move. "Come on," Vivi muttered, her shoes digging into the soil and sweat dripping down her face as she tried with all her might to free the pirate. "Wah!" Kiryu agreed. A shape shifted on the edge of the clearing, a long-nosed human running into the open. Only a second followed before the saber-toothed tiger chasing him appeared, gaining. "Usopp!" Luffy called, excited to see his friend. "He-e-e-op!" the sniper cried, shifting his path to bring himself and the predator past his trapped captain. Luffy's arm stretched as he passed, grabbing the cat by the fang and slamming it face first into the shield. It landed on its feet, as cats do, wobbling in a dizzy circle before tipping over and passing out. Finally free of the monster, Usopp flopped to the ground, panting. "Thanks. Good to see you, Usopp," Luffy grinned. "Wait, didn't the old giant guy say you and Nami were hanging out with the other old giant guy?" "Nami? Yeah, she's Rio shit." The sniper paled. "Where is she?" Luffy demanded, his own predicament forgotten. "Calm down, Luffy," Vivi tried. "I'm sure she might have been eaten by a dinosaur," Usopp blurted. "We were running for our lives through the jungle and she was there 1 minute and gone the next." "Nami!" Luffy yelled into the wind, his struggles to free himself redoubling. "I'm sure she wasn't eaten," Vivi offered, though she wasn't as sure of the words as she appeared to be. "Let's think about this, logically. She went missing in an instant and we aren't alone on this island. I'm afraid Baroque Works has her hostage." "They're here?" Usopp gaped. "The alcohol Broggy gave Dory exploded while he was drinking it," the Blinette explained. "We didn't trap it and the giants have too much honor for Broggy to have, so that only leaves a third party with Baroque Works coming after us. They are the most logical answer." "Very good, Miss Wednesday," the smooth voice of Mr. Five affirmed, slow clapping making his and his partner's appearance from the forest more dramatic. A+ detective work. "What do you think, Miss Valentine?" "I think I'm impressed none of them are dead yet, Kai-ha-ha-ha." The blonde at his side laughed. "Bastards!" Luffy raged. "Where's Nami?" Your little girlfriend's still alive. If that's what you're asking, Miss Valentine responded, intentionally unhelpful. Well, for now, anyway. How dare you? Vivi yelled, pulling her peacock slashers out into the open. Usopp loaded his slingshot, completely unaware of the powers the opposing duo possessed. So you did take Nami. Not just her, Mr. Five taunted, one finger making its way into his nose. We have the pirate hunter and the man-demon as well. Shit. Usopp hissed, his leg shaking. That's fine. We can take you. Exploding star. That won't work on me, Mr. Five commented right before the projectile hit him, exploding with much more force than it should have. Miss Valentine opened her parasol, riding the shockwave high into the sky. Usopp followed her with his eyes, shocked. Here I come, long nose. 10,000 kilogram press. The blonde yelled, closing her parasol once she was above him. Usopp screamed, diving away from the area that became a crater a split second later. Oh, I missed. Maybe you'll be a little more fun than I thought. You let them go. Vivi demanded, pointing at Mr. Five while Usopp and his foe played a game of cat and mouse. You can't honestly think that would work, princess, the man chuckled. No one just lets their captives go because someone says so. Then I'll make you. The blue-haired royal charged, her weapon spinning. Mr. Five yawned as she approached, his arm exploding as the princess weapon made contact. Though the blast nullified the force, it did not manage to break the crystal weapon. Karyu charged in from the other side, but barely a touch caused Mr. Five's back to detonate, taking the duck out of the fight in a storm of heat. Vivi was not deterred, using her natural flexibility to dance around the bomb man. It's always a laugh to see you fight, Miss Wednesday, he smirked, the woman twisting around in explosion he sent out from his palm. His chest exploded as the princess tried to kick him, but the action was a feint to cover her slash toward his face. Vivi's peacock slashers cut a gash across his left cheek, but the damage was only superfluous. He raised one hand, his finger dabbing the wound to come away bloody. Ow! Vivi panted, having expended all that energy just for a small cut. Mr. Five's eyes hardened as he pulled a revolver out of his pocket, breathing into it. Playtime's over, he said, aiming the gun at his female opponent. Come with us or else. Then come and take me, the princess growled. Mr. Five didn't take kindly to that, firing the pistol. Somehow, the air he had breathed into it fired like a bullet, exploding against the ground to Vivi's right. Another shot exploded to her left, the shockwaves throwing her to the ground. Vivi! Luffy yelled, throwing a punch at the man. Mr. Five leisurely brushed it off with another explosion, soldering up to the fallen Blionette. This is the end of the line, the agent warned, his weapon aimed at the princess' legs. Any last words to your friends? Yeah, the princess breathed, smiling. Dinosaur. Mr. Five's eyes widened as he tried to rocket himself backward with an explosion from his free hand and feet. He was too slow, however, unable to completely avoid the attack that came from his right. The action saved his life, but did not stop the horn that ripped through his ear. Go the fuck! He screamed, dropping his gun to cradle his now missing ear. What the hell? That's what cocky guys like you get, the clothes-wearing Triceratops commented, pawing the ground in front of the princess. Damn it, if only I was a little faster. Koby? Luffy questioned, recognizing the voice. Koby closed his eyes, shrinking into his hybrid mode and unsheathing his Sabaku no Kiba. Since when could you do that? Since about 30 minutes ago, the zone answered. The ground shook, the giants' fight in the distance coming to an unfortunate end. Dory going down in a spray of blood was too much of a distraction for Usopp, Ms. Valentine finally catching the slippery sniper under her falling body. Seeing that the Gecko Island native wasn't a threat anymore, Valentine picked him up by the hair and put her parasol against his throat. Usopp. The pirates and Vivi gasped, the blonde walking over to her partner. Kai haha. The blonde laughed. I think you can see where this is going, Princess. If you come with us, we'll give back your friend. Deal? Vivi, don't, Koby warned. But the plea fell of deaf ears. The princess stood, pushing the zone out of the way. She glanced back for only a moment before turning forward, relinquishing herself to the mercy of the agents. True to their word, they released Usopp, throwing him to the ground while Mr. 5 threw Vivi over his shoulder in a fireman's carry. Tata. Miss Valentine taunted. No. Koby denied, shifting back into his Dino mode and charging the pair. You won't take her. Koby, don't. Vivi tried, but she was too late to stop him. Mr. 5 turned, spitting into his hand before aiming his palm at the coming Triceratops. This is for my ear, you bastard. Explosive denial. Mr. 5 unleashed his largest explosion yet, the blast strong enough to blow Koby skyward. He flipped once, landing with a crunch. He didn't move, save for shrinking back into his human form. And that's that, Miss Valentine nodded, the pair taking their leave, their captive crying silently. Shit. Luffy hissed, still struggling under the weight of the giant's shield. Damn it. Damn it. Koby. Usopp. Karyu. I'm still alive, Koby wheezed, pushing himself to his feet. His glasses lay crushed where he'd landed, beyond all repair. We lost, Captain Luffy. What now? Help me get out, Luffy ordered. We're gonna go kick their asses and get everyone back. Wincing, Koby stumbled to his feet, the world around him only a blurry mess. It seemed he didn't need his glasses while under the effect of his transformation, but still needed them for his default. That was unfortunate, since they were destroyed. Guessing he needed to see, and also have the extra muscle mass, the boy shifted into his Dino mode once more and made his way to his captain. Taking in the situation, he jammed his upper horns on either side of Luffy's body and lifted with all his might. The shield only moved 2 inches for a moment, but that was all the space and time Luffy needed to pull himself free with Koby's crown. He snapped back into shape, immediately checking on Usopp and Karyu. The former had some bad bruising and blood running down from his hairline while the latter was covered in burns, but they were both alive and coming to. I think I can track them by scent, Koby announced, sniffing the ground. Mr. 5 smells like fire and gunpowder. And there should be a trail of blood from his ear. Wait? Usopp questioned. Koby? What happened to you? Ate a devil fruit by accident, he shrugged. Oh. Congrats. Alright. Luffy cheered. Now we're ready to go kick their asses. How very kind of you all for coming. Mr. 3 stood before his captive audience, a massive smile on his face and his hands behind his back. The agent was tall, thin man of about 30 years old with black hair stylized into a 3 shape. He was dressed in a blue and white striped button-up shirt with a red bow tie and khakis. A pair of glasses rested on his nose and the top of his hair burned like a candle wick. A monologue is never quite the same without a captive audience. It's not like we had much of a choice, Jin muttered with a roll of his eyes. He, Vivi, Nami, and Zoro were all trapped in Mr. 3's giant candle set, a wax creation that stood like a lighthouse on a small island, the top stylized to look like a pumpkin with candles. Each of the 4 were unable to move from their positions, their feet and ankles trapped in the wax under them. Beside the giant death trap was Broggy, his arms and legs chained to the ground by wax, though his mind seemed elsewhere as he cried. Sorry, Zoro. I lost those dinos you and Sanji hunted. They got the drop on us, the swordsman shrugged. Nonchalant. Would you two take this seriously? Nami demanded, trying to smack the 2 of them on either side of her, but the distance between them was too great. Shut up and listen to me. Mr. 3 ordered, launching into an explanation of how the giant candle set worked and the genius behind his plan. The other agents on the island, the Mr. 5 pair and Mr. 3's partner, stood arrayed behind him. Mr. 5's right ear was covered in a bloody bandage. Mr. 3's partner, Ms. Golden Week, was a short redhead with her hair in twin braids and big black eyes. She appeared to be around 13 and agent was dressed in a light, cloud print jacket over a navy blue shirt. She also wore a red skirt hidden from the front by a painter's smock with the top half folded down, said smock covered in paint stains of all colors and sizes. A pink cowboy hat sat on her head and 2 blush-like ovals donned her cheeks. A painter's palette hung from her belt with a sort of toolman's belt, hers filled with paintbrushes of various sizes. Completing her outfit were blue and white striped socks and pink tennis shoes. "Big sis," Miss Golden Week muttered, grabbing Miss Valentine's arm. "He's doing it again." "I know," the blonde responded gently, resting her hand on top of the redhead's shoulder. "We have to bear with it. We're so close to our goal." "I know," Miss Golden Week frowned. He makes me paint the statues of people so they're lifelike and they creep me out. And killing people to make a perfect country seems wrong. Boss orders, lil sis. I know you don't like it, but we don't have a choice. Baroque Works freed us and took us in, and once we're done, we'll never have to kill again. It's a lie. Vivi yelled over Mr. 3's monologue. Mr. Zero doesn't care about making a perfect country. He just wants to rule. Silence. Mr. 3 ordered, the fire at the tip of his hair flaring with his anger. It makes sense that you would try to deceive us since you're trying to save your own country and rule, but we will not be dissuaded, princess. You all don't even know who you're working for, Jin blinked. And if you learn who it is, he sends someone to kill you. That seems pretty damn shady to me. I don't expect a small band of misfit pirates to understand the subtle gearwork within the complicated system of government creation. You'll all die if you learn your boss name, right? Zoro asked, quirking an eyebrow. It's Crocodile the Warlord. Why the hell would you say that? All 4 agents screamed, casting their eyes out to see if the unlucky 13 pair were nearby. You moron, Mr. 3 snarled, his heartbeat returning to normal speed. Even if you are telling the truth, only we know what has happened here and you are soon to be dead. None of us are going to tell about this, so, you have not harmed any of us. Let's be rid of you. Mr. 3 waved his hand, the column in the center of the giant candle set beginning to rotate. The candles on top of the pumpkin figurehead lit, little flecks of wax beginning to fall like snow. Well, this sure is dangerous, Zoro commented, pulling out Wadokamanji and holding it in the air. He froze, refusing to move a muscle. What the hell are you doing? Nami questioned, trying to pull her feet free with no success. He said this thing is going to turn us into statues and it's too hard for my swords to cut, Zoro responded, still not moving. If I'm going to die and become a statue, I plan of being in a badass pose. You guys better find your own, too. You can't be serious, Mr. Bushido. Vivi gaped. He's right, Jin shrugged, pulling out his tonfa and striking a pose of his own, one tonfa held before his chest and the other above and in front of his face. This'll be my pose. Not you two. They've earned my respect, Mr. 5 nodded. Ain't no one ever had such badass poses for this. Mostly it's screaming and crying and begging. Shut up, 5. Nami and Vivi roared. You idiots are so stupid. Where's the stupid part of this? Jin asked. Either Don Luffy saves us or we die in a cool pose preserved after our death. Where's the downside? The part where we die. No one's dying on my watch. The voice of their captain shouted, dragging all attention to the edge of the clearing where Luffy appeared riding the Triceratops in clothing. Behind him was Usopp on Kiryu's back, each one of the attackers serious as a heart attack. I'm here to save you. They completely ignored their chance at stealth, Mr. 3 gaped, almost missing Luffy using Koby's horns like a slingshot. The agent wanted none of that, wax oozing out of his hand before he threw it to form a wall in the pirate captain's path. Luffy didn't miss a beat, his arms snapping out to help him flip over the wall. Gum gum double stamp. Luffy yelled, both of his feet coming down on Mr. 3. He absolutely did not squeak, slinging a wave of wax to take his place as Luffy's target. The wax hardened as the rubber man's legs passed through, locking them together in a candle. Countless battles while growing up and a natural battle ingenuity kicked in, Luffy balancing as he landed before launching himself at the horns on Broggy's helmet and twisting himself around one. "What do you think you're doing?" Mr. 3 asked, the Mr. 5 pair charging into the woods after the sniper and duck. "Don't think your weird stretching powers will save you or your friends, Straw. Gum gum mallet." Luffy yelled over the agent, spinning outward. His speed increased too quickly for Mr. 3 to react, Luffy's improvised weapon slamming into his chest. The force shattered the candle trap while also blowing him off into the forest. "Get back here, 3. I'm not done with you yet." With Usopp and Kiryu being chased by the Mr. 5 pair and Luffy kicking Mr. 3 across the forest, that left Koby to deal with the wax man's partner. Said partner define every expectation by simply spreading out a blanket and picnic basket. She turned to Koby expectantly, offering a cup of tea. "What are you doing?" Koby asked, his swords raised in his hybrid mode. From where the redhead was sitting, the green skin zone towered over the agent, not that she seemed worried in the slightest. "Making tea," the girl answered, plugging the spout of a teapot and giving it a small shake. "I'm Miss Golden Week. Care to join me?" "I'd rather not fight." Koby, the Rosette, muttered, lowering his swords. "You really don't plan on fighting, do you?" "Not really," she shrugged, taking a bite out of a rice cracker. "Mr. 3 and I are more of an information and ambush pair. He likes it, but I don't really have a choice. Here." The redhead poured 2 cups of tea, offering one to Koby. He eyed the drink, slowly releasing his transformation and resheathing his swords. Carefully, still suspicious, Koby sat on the blanket and accepted the tea. "You're really not going to try to stop me? As long as you don't go for the giant candle set, I don't have to work." Being in his human form forced Koby to squint to see, making him need to pat around to find the crackers the girl offered. Luckily, her red hair was a distinct color against the green of the background. "Your eyes suck, don't they?" Miss Golden Week asked, scooting the crackers under his fingers. "Wouldn't that be a problem for a pirate out at sea?" "I had some glasses, but Mr. 5 broke them," Koby explained, calmed by the goodwill she'd shown so far. "Oi, shrimp!" Zoro yelled, Koby turning to see the big white blob that was the giant candle set. "Quit flirting with the enemy." "I'm not." "Colors trap, befriending yellow-green," Miss Golden Week said. Koby frowns, a wave of calm coming over him, even with his sensei and Nami shouting at him in the distance. He blinked, turning back around and sitting again, unaware of the paint now covering his neck. "Sorry about that. I can't let you run off quite yet." "Oh, that's fine," Koby grinned, accepting a refill of tea. "Luffy and Usopp can handle it. And Sanji's around here somewhere. This look of yours is a lot less scary than that first one," Miss Golden Week commented, studying him closely. "I've never seen anyone with hair as pink as yours before. It'd be really nice if you let it grow out some." "You think so?" Koby blinked. "I've never thought about it. Most people make fun of me for it. Your hair is really nice, too, I think. I can't see all that well. Have you tried only changing your eyes with your own transformation?" the redhead suggested. "I heard some zones can change parts of their bodies at will, so maybe that will help." Koby. All 4 of the captives yelled, both short picnickers ignoring them. "I've only just gotten my fruit," the pirate explained, giving the girl a bright smile. "That's a good idea, though. You're really nice, even though we're supposed to be enemies." "You're sweet," Miss Golden Week smiled in return, or Koby assumed she smiled, since she was just a blob in his vision. "What fruits do you and your crew have?" "Mine is the Dragon Zone, ancient model Triceratops, I think," Koby answered, no sign of hesitation in his words. "Captain Luffy has the gum fruit, so he's made of rubber. Those are the only ones, though I expect we'll pick up more at some point." In the distance behind them, Luffy and Mr. 3 flew out of the woods, Luffy with both feet planting in Mr. 3's stomach. The agent's eyes were boggled in pain, a piece of spittle flying. The force sent the man into the side of the giant candle set, stars in his vision. "Yeah, take that!" Luffy cheered, only for an explosive booger to slam into his chest from the other side of the clearing. "Your fight is with us!" Usopp yelled from somewhere beyond the trees, firing half a dozen rotten eggs into Tabasco Star, that latter of which found its way down Mr. 5's throat. He screamed, fire burning in his throat from the heat. "Long nose!" Miss Valentine raged, punching a hole in a tree. Usopp squeaked, fleeing on Kiryu as the tree toppled. "We aren't done yet, boy," Mr. 3 called, forming a wax axe and charging into the woods after Luffy. "Why didn't Mr. 3 ask for your help?" Koby wondered. "We aren't exactly contributing anything right now. He thinks I can only manipulate one person at a time," the redhead answered, taking another ice cracker. "How do you do that?" "Painting has been in my dad's side of the family since it was first invented, or so he said. Supposedly, one of our ancestors was the famous post-void artist Micatello." Koby blinked, the name meaning nothing to him. Miss Golden Week sighed. "Yeah, I expected that. He's a painter who lived in the time between the end of the Void Century and the founding of the world government, but his stuff is still on display." "Wow. That doesn't answer my question, though." "Oh, yeah. There are chemicals in my paint," the girl explained, showing her palette only to remember that Koby couldn't see it. "Each color is connected to an emotion, and the chemicals react in your body to cause that emotion. Anger, sadness, exhaustion, joy, I can control them all. Well, most of them. Unfortunately, my parents died before Dad could teach me everything, so I still have a way to go." "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring up sad memories. It was a while ago, but that's why Big Sister and I joined Baroque Works." "You have a sister?" Koby asked, taking another cracker. There was screaming and cracking. "What's going on behind me?" "Your captain just broke through one of Mr. 3's wax walls. I think your friends will be saved soon." Mr. 3 seems pretty dizzy. Even as she spoke, Luffy was wasting no more time, considering his crewmates were losing all mobility to the wax. Laying out Mr. 3 with a haymaker, Luffy jumped toward the giant candle set and planted himself next to the pumpkin ornament. He grabbed it, bringing its rotation to a halt. Digging his fingers in, he screamed and pulled. "You can't be serious." Mr. 3 gaped, nursing a bruise on his face. "That thing weighs a couple 100 pounds. There's no way you can." Crack. Luffy's yelling increased in volume, Nami and Vivi cheering him on as the pumpkin started to shift, the wax at its base cracking. With a final shove, the whole thing gave way, tumbling backwards on the side opposite the captives. It hit the ground with a heavy thump, Koby and Miss Golden Week's teacups shaking with the ground. The younger agent stared, shocked. "Your captain? Just. Yeah, he does that. You know," Miss Golden Week commented, swallowing. "I've been thinking about leaving Baroque Works for a while now. I mean, yeah, they took us in when Big Sister and I needed a place to go, but I'm not sure I like what they're fighting for." "Is what Miss Wednesday said about the boss's promise being a lie true?" "I'm afraid so," Koby answered, honestly. "Princess Vivi explained it to us on the way here. Your boss Crocodile." "Oh, you know," Koby blinked, the yellow-green paint making him shrug off the shock. "Yeah, Crocodile wants to take over Alabasta so he can rule it himself. He actually started the civil war going on there right now." "That's just rude," Miss Golden Week responded. "Well, if I jumped ship, do you think Big Sis and I would be able to get away?" "Captain Luffy tends to get all the attention on us," Koby responded. "I'd say there's a good chance. Guess I'm going rogue." "Want to save your friends?" "Please. Go ahead." Miss Golden Week nodded, gesturing to the nearly immobile pirates, doing nothing about the paint she put on the boy's neck. Koby stood, transforming into his Dino mode as he did. His path was clear of all obstructions, allowing the zone to build up speed. "This is gonna hurt," he muttered, ramming into the wax at the captive's feet only a moment later. The giant candle set shook with the impact, the zone's horns digging into the softer wax on the side. He growled, shaking his head every which way to widen the holes. "That's it, shrimp," Zoro praised, feeling the wax around his feet begin to loosen. "It's about time." Nami yelled. "You can do it," Vivi offered. The wax finally gave way with the last push, freeing the human captives. Their tumble shattered the wax coating their bodies, fully unhampering them ground. "How I've missed you," Nami cried, all but hugging the soil. "That's nice and all," Jin breathed, rolling the stiffness out of his arms, "but can we at least admit, Zoro and I had better poses? Let's finish this fight first," Koby suggested, growing into his hybrid mode. "I'm so done with his island." "Goated, damn it," Sanji groaned, leaning against a tree. "I'm lost." He and Zoro had gotten separated at some point in their mad dash to where they thought the fight was, but because there were no trails, the chef had gotten all turned around. He came upon a small clearing, a low, white structure sitting in the middle. Sanji blinked, scanning the clearing for any signs of life. None appeared. Cautiously, the blonde approached and knocked. No one answered. Shrugging, Sanji opened the door and waltzed in. The building had a homey air about it, a table in the middle supporting a pot of tea and several teacups. Never one to let food or drink go to waste, the blonde reheated the drink and poured his own cup. He hummed. "West Blue tea time. Whoever owns this place has good taste." He sat there for several minutes, sipping his tea, before a faint bada-bada-bada-up. Bada-bada-bada-up reached his ears. Shifting into his chair, Sanji scanned the room until his gaze landed on a purple box resting on a countertop. The chef stood, tea in hand, and walked over, opening the box to find a matching purple den mushie with a black mustache. Sanji picked up the receiver, causing the snail to go colic. You've called the Crap Cafe. May I take your order?" "This is no time for fooling around," a gruff voice growled on the other end of the line. The snail manifesting a cigar. "Your report is late, Mr. 3. You're usually very prompt. Is there a problem?" "No sir," Sanji responded, playing along. May I ask who this is? Do you think this is funny? This is Mr. Zero, you numbskull. Now what is your situation? Are Princess Vivi and all of the Straw Hat Pirates dead?" "Yes sir," the pirate lied. "Very dead. Very, very dead. They put up one hell of a fight, though. Especially their cook. I'm still feeling the hits. Whatever. I've sent the unluckies to your location with an eternal pose to Alabasta. Be sure to get here on time. We'll be beginning the next phase of the plan." "Yes sir," Sanji replied before a small flutter drew the chef's attention to the window. There upon the windowsill sat two animals, a vulture with aviator goggles and an otter in a pink onesie. Sanji blinked. The otter blinked. The vulture blinked. The snail blinked. Sanji blinked. The otter pulled oyster shells out of its back pockets, 3 razors opening from each like switchblades. The vulture knelt to reveal the minigun strapped to its back. The snail blinked. "Oshi." Sanji dropped his tea and ducked behind the table as the bird fired, burying bullets in the floor, walls, and furniture. The pirate didn't know what the house was made of, but it was some strong stuff to survive the initial onslaught. There was a VRR as the minigun clicked, allowing Sanji to poke his head up over the counter. That was a bad choice as he was forced to roll away, 3 blades slashing through the air where his eyes had been. The otter growled, jumping after the human. "I don't think so," Sanji hissed, pushing himself into a handstand to avoid another swipe. He twisted, catching the otter with a kick that launched him into the table. There was a sickening crunch as the otter's head met the edge, the semi-aquatic mammal falling with a wet thump a moment later. Rat! The vulture screeched, charging the chef with talons bared. Sanji was too slow to avoid the bird fully, the claws ripping into his side. The adrenaline allowed him to ignore the pain as he flipped, catching the vulture's long neck between his legs. With a sharp twist, the bird's neck snapped, the avian falling limp. Shit, Sanji hissed, pressing a palm into his bleeding side. What the hell was that? Mr. Zero demanded over the snail phone, reminding Sanji of the call. He reached over, grabbing the receiver from where it was dangling off the counter. Nothing, sir. A couple of the pirate bastards were simply playing dead. I took care of them. No need to worry or send any help. Right. Just don't screw it up. Sanji breathed a sigh of relief, ready to hang up. Oh, and Mr. 3. Do something about that cold of yours. It's making you sound like a brat trying to hide a North Blue accent. The snail went to sleep with a soft caw. Sanji stayed frozen for a moment before pulling out a cigarette. He lit it and took a long drag, easing his frayed nerves. Glad that's over. Bet I could cook these two up and the idiots would love it. What's this? He knelt down, picking up a small, hourglass-like item beside the still otter. With this, I'll get a kiss from Vivi-kun for sure. Okay, let's take stock, Nami said quickly, eyeing the area around them. Kiryu and Usopp have the Mr. 5 bear. Distracted, Luffy's fighting 3, and 3's partner isn't a threat. Koby cut in, glancing at the redhead with his dinosauric eyes so he could actually see what she looked like. She waved good-naturedly, munching on another rice cracker. She's a friend. Sure she is, Jin teased. He didn't finish, Usopp and Karyu running over him since they weren't watching where they were going. The three fell into an unorganized heap. They're free. Mr. 5 panted as he and Miss Valentine rounded the edge of the now-defunct giant candle set. I'll handle this, Zoro grinned, unsheathing his swords and attacking. Mr. 5 promptly exploded, Miss Valentine floating away from the fight. You can't beat me with my bomb fruit powers, Mr. 5 said, trying to find an opening to get some ammo. He spit, the saliva exploding upon contact with the ground. We'll see about that, one near, Zoro taunted through the resulting smoke. Valen. Your fight is with us, Jin interrupted, coming in from the side. Get him. Usopp cheered, happy to pass his fight on to someone else. Quick, while they're distracted, Vivi urged. Let's free Broggy. Big sis, Miss Golden Week muttered, one hand keeping Valentine from returning to the fight. We need to go. Grace, we owe too much to the company, Valentine responded, not daring to use her full strength lest she injure her sister. Not only that, but her words came out half hollow as she watched the men of their pairs get chased around the fallen remains of their plan. Amy, Ms. Golden Week, Grace, pleaded. I know you feel indebted to the company. I did, too, but we both know that after you and Mr. 5 failed to stop the pirates at Whiskey Peak that you were on Mr. Zero's list. This catastrophe is only making that more likely and we never really agreed with everything. Let's just leave. But where would we go? Miss Valentine, Amy, questioned. This was a lot more energy than her sister usually showed. We don't have a ship or any real skill at navigating. We didn't even come to the Grand Line by choice and we certainly can't stay on this island. I was kind of hoping, Grace muttered, tapping her forefingers together, that we could go with these pirates. What? The older of the pair gaped. Why? I don't know. They seem nice enough. You've already decided, haven't you, lil sis? Yeah. Ugh. Fine, the devil fruit, user relented. If you're leaving, I'm going with you. I've got to keep my little sister safe, don't I? The redhead didn't respond, just smiling faintly. The blonde sighed, activating her powers to float over to where the swordsman, former Krieg pirate, and bomb man were still fighting. The former two were littered with small burns, but were otherwise fine, while the latter was littered with small cuts and bruises. 10,000 kilogram press. The floating woman dropped, Jin and Zoro hearing the yell and diving out of the way. Mr. 5 smirked, believing his backup had finally arrived. As a result, he didn't even react as the woman landed on him like a pile of bricks, instantly knocking him unconscious. Well, that's something. Zoro blinked, refusing to lower his weapons. I thought your aim was better than that. I take great pride in my aim, thank you, the woman rebuffed, floating to her feet to stand on her downed former partner. What brought this on? Jin wondered. My little sister has chosen to leave Baroque Works, and my allegiance is to her, not to the company. Wherever she goes, I go. So that's what it's like to have siblings, Jin muttered, a burst of flame igniting, away from them. The fire, laid by Nami, Vivi, Usopp, Karyu, and Koby, melted the wax holding Broggy down. Even so, the giant seems despondent, barely reacting to his freedom. Stay down, wax guy. Luffy yelled, directing their attention to where the captain had resorted to throwing random punches at the agent. My code name is Mr. 3. Said agent insisted, throwing up a sphere of wax that cracked, but held under Luffy's onslaught. A second punch shattered it, revealing 3 different white statues of Mr. 3 in various poses. He can clone himself? Luffy gasped, admitting that was cool despite his annoyance. It's no use, the voice of the agent taunted. Your brute force is no match for my intellect. I don't think you realize how many of us there are, Koby commented, himself. Luffy, Zoro, Jin, Usopp, Nami, and Vivi fanning out around the trio of statues. One of them began to sweat. Found you. So you bow to overwhelming power? Mr. 3 questioned, dropping his disguise and backing away toward Golden Week's picnic. In that case, I'll show you my strongest attack. Champion armor. Wax stripped from his arms and shoulders, shifting and building until his whole torso was contained in a suit of white armor with boxing gloves for hands. The ensemble made him tower over all the pirates. Miss Golden Week, if you would please paint it for me? Do I have to? Golden Week. Fine. The girl pouted, her smaller body making her need to climb up the side of the armor. She reached the top with a little assistance from Mr. 3, only for her to turn on him. Color trap, sadness, blue. Life sucks, Mr. 3 whined, his face painted with a blue swirl as he, still in his champion armor, curled up like a scolded child. No one respects candle making anymore. Everyone thinks it's stupid. Golden Week slid off him, meandering over toward the assembled pirates. Hello, she greeted, a rice cracker in hand. My name is Grace. Grace Marigold. Hi. I'm Monkey D. Luffy. And I'm Koby. Captain Luffy, Grace continued. I've chosen to leave Baroque Works because I believe what Miss Winner, Princess Vivi said about the boss promises being lies. Can I join your crew? Most of the crew balked. Usually it was Luffy inviting people, not people asking to join. She had no idea what she was getting into. That depends, Luffy answered. Do you have a dream to chase? I wanna be a painter, one so famous that even the Marines acknowledge my ability. I like you, Luffy smiled. You're welcome aboard. That's great. Koby grinned, still under the effects of her befriending yellow-green. It's great to meet you, Grace. Hold on, the redhead responded. I won't go unless you let my sister on, too. Who's your sister? Luffy asked. That would be me, Miss Valentine, answered, stepping into the conversation with Zoro and Jin, her parasol acting as a sunbrella. She stepped over to Grace's side, wrapping one arm around the younger girl's shoulders. I'm Amy Palland, Grace's adopted older sister. She knocked Mr. 5 unconscious, Don Luffy, Jin informed him. I think we can trust her. So what's your dream? Luffy asked the blonde. My what? Your dream. What do you want to do with your life? I haven't really thought about it, Amy admitted. I wanted to follow in my parents' footsteps and become a chocolatier when I was younger, but right now, I just want to keep my little sister safe. I'll work on the chocolate in the meantime. What's a chocolatier? Koby blinked. It's someone who makes chocolate for a living. You make chocolate? Luffy all but shouted. Join my crew. Ow, a giant voice groaned, the disoriented form of Dory sitting up beyond the trees. He's alive? Everyone in the clearing gasped. Dory shaking his head to clear away the dizziness. His movement seemed to rouse Broggy from his depression, the other giant moving to stare at his best friend and mortal enemy. Old giant guy. Luffy cheered. You're not dead. The weapons, Dory explained. They saved me. They've grown dull from our 100 years of fighting. Our duel is over. You're alive. Broggy cried, smiling through his tears as his words descended into mindless babble. The humans couldn't blame him, though. Well, Amy clapped, I don't know about you all, but I'm starved. Sanji. Luffy cheered, bringing the pirates' after-party to a halt as the chef ran into the clearing, a saber-tooth cat chasing him. Jin jumped in the way, his tonfa coming down on the cat's skull, driving it into the dirt. Sanji panted, still holding his side. The right side of his suit was stained red, but it was hard to see under all the dust and dirt coating him. You're alive. That's nice. Where the hell have you been? Nami and Usopp demanded. What went wrong, swirly-eyed bastard? Zoro taunted. Get lost? Thanks for nothing. Vivi yelled. Jin, Koby, Grace, and Amy stayed silent. What did I miss? The blonde chef panted. There was a big fight, Koby answered. We won and gained 2 new crew members. This is Grace and her sister Amy. Sanji tried to noodle dance, but he didn't get far before coughing some blood and falling on his ass. Jin dove, catching the chef and throwing one arm around his own neck to help him stand. What happened to you, Sanji? The tonfa user asked. Sanji ignored him, sending a weak thumbs up to the new members. Our crew becomes more bearable with every beautiful woman we add. Against his body's protests, Sanji pushed away from Jin and fell to one knee before the sisters, kissing their knuckles like a gentleman. Pleased to make your acquaintance. I am the ship's chef, Sanji. Any wish of yours is mine to fulfill. Be careful, Koby warned. He's a pervert. The effect was immediate, Sanji freezing as if someone had shot him in the heart with an arrow. He bent over, seemingly ready to die from the blunt but true statement. Or maybe it was because of the wound in his side that was still bleeding. Sanji, right? Amy asked with a sickly sweet smile, drawing his attention to her. Her voice mirrored her faux sweetness. If you peek at, flirt with, or even look at my sister in that way, I will pin you down, sit on your balls, and use my devil fruit powers to slowly increase my mass to 10,000 kilograms. Understood? Yes, ma'am. Sanji yelped, paling at the threat to his manhood and family jewels. I like this girl, Jin murmured to Zoro. Of course you would, you sadistic bastard, Zoro muttered back. Are we going to ignore that Sanji is heavily injured? Koby asked. Hey, giants. Nami questioned, ignoring the fact that Sanji was heavily injured. How long does it take the log pose to set on this island? 1 year, Dory answered nonchalantly, as if that amount of time was just a few days. For a giant's lifespan, it kind of was. We can't wait here for a year. Vivi shouted. By then my country could be gone. Then is it a good thing I found this? Sanji stuttered, holding up an eternal pose to Alabasta in his shaking hand. Where did you get that? I beat up some animals in this wax house, but one of them got me. Can you nurse me back to health, Vivi? Animals in a wax house? Amy parroted. You mean the unluckies? You beat them? Don't talk anymore. Jin insisted, ripping his shirt off to triage Sanji's wound. While I was there, Sanji continued, ignoring Jin's order, a den started ringing, so I answered it. It was this Mr. Zero guy. You talked to Mr. Zero? All the former members of Baroque Works escaped. Yeah. He thought I was this Mr. 3 guy, so I told him that we were dead. He seemed to believe me. The unluckies you mentioned showed up and tried to kill me. I won, of course, but the otter dropped this. That means we can leave, right? Koby asked. Yes, Nami answered. Personally, I want to get off of this godforsaken island as soon as possible. I agree, Vivi said. We need to get to Alabasta. Then let's get ready. Luffy yelled. But first, a banquet of dinosaur meat. Wow, Jin blinked. I didn't know Don Luffy knew the word banquet. It means a lot of food, Nami deadpanned. Of course he knows it. Goated, damn it. Not again. Koby swore violently, once again trying to pull one of his new horns out of a tree. Much of the crew sat to the side, laughing at him while waiting for Sanji to finish cooking the banquet that Luffy had requested. Even Vivi, who had insisted that the crew not laugh at the boy for the first few times he'd gotten stuck, was hard-pressed not to burst into a fit of giggles herself. This isn't funny. Koby whined, his hands pressed against the tree he was stuck in. The Rosette was trying to change only his eyes using his new devil fruit powers, just as Grace had suggested, but he wasn't having as much luck as he had been hoping for. For the third time in a row, Koby had gotten one of his upper horns lodged into the wood. Growling, the boy picked his feet up and shoved them against the tree, only for his powers to fail and the horns to shrink back into his head. Koby tumbled to the ground, causing another round of laughter. Sorry, Shrimp, Zoro chuckled. You know we'd help, but none of us are zone types. Really? Though, Nami commented. You should have stopped practicing next to that tree after the first time. Yeah, Koby waved off with an irritated grunt. Screwing his eyes shut, the boy, once more, tried to concentrate his powers on his eyes alone. His face tingled for a second before more laughter echoed through the clearing. How bad is it? Koby asked without opening his eyes. It's not that bad, Vivi promised. Koby opened his eyes and took the mirror that Nami offered with a smirk. His eyes had changed, along with the rest of his face. With a groan, Koby's head dropped into his palms and he sat against the tree. Slowly, his face shifted back to its normal look. Their entertainment over for the time being, the rest of the group split off to do their own things. I feel like I'll never get this right, Koby whined to himself. Cheer up, Koby, Jin insisted, sitting beside him. You've only been trying for half an hour. But I'm not getting anywhere. Sure you are, the former Krieg pirate rebuffed. You've stopped doing full transformations. Only parts of you are changing. That's a start. But it's not fast enough, Koby muttered. I won't be able to help sail the Mary, if I can't see. Learning is a process, little man, Jin responded. Do you think I just picked up my tonfa and started fighting? I hurt myself so much that I'd come back home covered in bruises and my old man would ask if I'd been playing in the coal mines. Koby turned his gaze to the blob of color that Jin's voice was coming from. Really? Yeah, Jin nodded. At least, Koby thought he nodded. I was 16 back then. Took me almost a month before I stopped hitting myself. So many people laughed at me for that. Koby paused. Thanks, Jin. I needed to hear that. No problem, little man, Jin smirked. You've got more company coming this way, so I'll go keep everyone else occupied. Jin stood with a grunt and Koby heard him call out, Hey, Amy. Got any info on Baroque Works that we could use? He walked away, only for his spot to be filled again moments later. Hey, Grace greeted, falling into Jin's vacated seat. You doing okay? Yeah, Koby sighed. This is just harder than I thought it would be, you know? Not really, the painter admitted. I do remember Amy complaining after she got her powers about a year ago, though. She and Mr. 5, who was Mr. Afro at the time, had attacked a group of pirates that stopped at one of the early islands called Wesley Isle. She told me that the pirates had been celebrating after raiding a marine base that morning and that they'd found 2 devil fruits in the vaults. The pirates were planning on eating them that night, but Big Sis snuck out. "You okay?" Koby twisted around, but his terrible eyesight didn't allow him to see what had happened. "Yeah, I'm fine," Grace waved off. "Just a bug bite." Now, where was I? Amy raiding pirates? Right. Anyway, Big Sis snuck in and stole the devil fruits, she and Mr. Five eating them instead. The girl cracked a smile. "Her powers fluctuated for a week and we had to replace her bed twice because her mass would increase in the middle of the night." Koby couldn't help it, he snorted out a laugh. Grace giggled, allowing the new devil fruit user to let his amusement show, the two laughing with each other. With a sigh, Koby turned to the multicolored blob that was Grace, smiling. "Thanks, I needed that," Koby said, standing to step away from the tree. He turned, offering the redhead a hand. She accepted, letting him help her stand. "I guess I should get back to work." "Here," Grace offered, pulling out her palette. Carefully, she smeared paint around Koby's eye and about the shape of his old lenses. "Now you have an area to focus on." "I don't think you needed to do that," Koby deadpanned. "I think I know where my eyes are." "I know." Grace walked away. The blob Koby saw her as growing smaller before his vision was filled with a bouncing blob that Koby suspected was his captain. "You look funny, Koby." Luffy laughed. "Any more progress?" "Let me check," the Rosette responded, catching some of Luffy's infectious energy. A few seconds later, the boy's face twisted, his forehead elongating, his eyes changing, and his third horn growing from his nose. Luffy swam into view. "Your mouth didn't change that time," the rubber man pointed out with a smile. "You're almost there. My beautiful mademoiselles," Sanji's voice carried over to the devil fruit users. "Your dinosaur La Carnies has been cooked with the flames of my love. Hey, shitheads. Come get your meat." "Food!" Luffy yelled, becoming a blur headed in the direction of the table. "Well," Koby mused, not noticing his forehead receding back into place. "I guess I can continue after dinner." "Hey, Captain Luffy. Save some for the rest of us." He bolted after the rubber man, completely forgetting the paint on his face. The Going Merry had been stocked with all the dinosaur meat and ivory that could be shoved into the hold, the ship floating several feet deeper than normal. It had taken longer to load than expected, Zoro and Sanji having restarted their previous argument about whose catch was bigger, but in the end, Nami had, scared, charmed them into submission. Koby had also suggested that they bring along the horns from Zoro's Triceratops and the teeth from Sanji's dinosaur to sell if they ever needed some extra money. According to both him and Vivi, ivory could fetch a high price if sold to the right bidder. Grace and Amy had moved into the women's quarters with Nami and Vivi, both of whom did not fully trust them, yet. Nami ended up writing out a sleep schedule for the two of them to keep an eye on the sisters at night. Especially Amy. Koby had completed Grace's suggestion of only altering his eyes with his powers. There had been quite a few mishaps with the wrong things changing and his eyes still shifted every now and then, but for all intents and purposes he no longer needed glasses, even if he now had slitted pupils. He'd also taken to wearing a pair of sandals he'd gotten from Luffy after the loss of his tennis shoes during his initial transformation. Finally, they were ready to depart, though it would have been 2 hours earlier had Luffy not insisted they eat all of the meat they couldn't store on the ship. Either way, they were ready. The Mary slowly made its way down the river until she came to the mouth and gave way to the ocean. The giants were standing there, one on each side. "Remember," Dory began from the left. "There is an obstacle standing in your way of getting to the next island." "We will take care of it," Broggy insisted on the right. "Just keep going straight, no matter what." "You guys heard him," Luffy said. "Set sail." Following the giant's orders, the Mary sailed, straight ahead, never faltering even when the water ahead of them began to rise. "What is that?" Amy asked. "We need to turn," Usopp yelled. "Straight ahead," Luffy repeated, the surface tension breaking to reveal a giant red goldfish. The island eater, as they heard the giants call it from behind them, promptly swallowed them. Not again. Nami cried, grabbing hold of Luffy. I don't wanna be digested. We won't be, Luffy grinned. The fish froze, its insides twisting before a perfect hole was blown through it, the air pressure filling the sails and propelling the Mary through. See? We're safe. Full speed ahead. Chapter 8. 2 days passed quickly for the Straw Hat Pirates after their prehistoric adventure on Little Garden, and Amy and Grace had slowly grown accustomed to life on the Going Merry. Their presence, however, was not good for the blood pressures of Nami and Vivi, both women constantly keeping at least one eye on the new blonde. That brought them to this moment, all three of the grown women and Karyu resting in the kitchen as Sanji bustled about, constantly having to clean his own blood off the counter since Amy was mercilessly teasing him. "Oh, Sanji," Amy called, from her seat. "What can I do for you, Amy?" the chef asked, his pale face a sharp contrast to the hearts in his eyes. "Your wish is my command. Another lemonade, please, Sanji. This one with crushed ice." "Right away." Sanji noodled out the door toward the hold where their non-tangerine citrus was held. The door closed behind him, leaving the three women alone. "You have to stop," Nami growled, dragging Amy's gaze to her. "He's still recovering from the injury he got in Little Garden, and he's not going to get better if you keep giving him nosebleeds." "He's tough," the former agent waved off, "and it's not like the nosebleeds are that common anymore. It's your fault we're having such low cut-tops." "That's not for Sanji," Nami balked, Vivi fidgeting awkwardly at the topic. "I had to wear those to get out of tough situations before I met Luffy. Besides, why are you wearing my clothes? Would you rather me wear nothing?" Amy shot back with a smirk, bringing Nami to a grinding halt. Amy pressed on. "I mean, I don't have anything except that dress and my umbrella. It's bad enough that I only have one set of underwear and it's not even my law." "Okay, we get it," Vivi interrupted, red as a tomato. "Honestly, princess, you need to relax," the blonde smirked, leaning back in her chair. "Let your hair down a little. It's not healthy to keep all that stress bottled up." "Oh, so now you're a doctor," Nami snarked. "You're the reason for all my stress," Vivi muttered at the same time. The former Miss Valentine sighed, sitting up and leaning forward onto the table. "You don't trust me," she said, the statement in no way a question. "I get it. A woman with a sadistic streak a mile wide and the ability to crush a ship to splinters swaps sides at the drop of a hat because of another person. I wouldn't trust me either. I'm going to be real with you, I'm not loyal to this crew." Nami and Vivi reeled as if they'd been slapped, but Amy continued. "My loyalty is to my little sister. Grace and I stayed with Baroque Works because we owed them a debt and never had a clear way out. We always knew deep down that the whole Paradise spiel was a bunch of bull, but the unluckies would have gotten us if we tried to run. Until Little Garden. Listen, I don't know what Pinky said to my sister to get her to hop on your boat, but as long as she stays, I stay." Her eyes hardened. "That said, that little bastard better not even think about trying anything with her or I will bury him." "Why?" Vivi began, only for the door to swing open. "Your prince has returned," Sanji called, back in the kitchen in a moment. Before any of the women could even blink, there was a slice of cake before each of them. "Sanji's gotten faster," Nami commented, a little awed by the speed. "He must have been training with Luffy when I wasn't looking. Or it's the fights he keeps getting into with Zoro," Amy grinned, accepting the finished drink she'd ordered. The blonde blinked, tilting her head so she could see past the navigator and princess. Vivi." "Yes. Isn't your duck supposed to be yellow?" "Yes." Vivi twisted, her eyes quickly finding Karyu in the corner of the room. He was sitting on a pile of blankets, his face colored red with beads of sweat rolling down his face and his head hung down, as if he didn't have enough energy to hold it upright. "Karyu." The princess leapt to her feet, worrying over to the animal she's hatched from an egg so long ago. Karyu let out a long, pained wah as the bayonet reached for his forehead. She flinched at the barest touch as if she'd been burned. "Karyu, you're burning up." Vivi gasped. "Is something wrong?" Sanji asked, replacing clean dishes. He blinked at the scene, instantly readying a wet cloth. "Karyu's never been sick before," Vivi answered, accepting the chef's offering. "I've always made sure he had all his shots and everything. If he's not better by the time we reach Alabasta, that could really affect things. He plays a critical messenger role in my plans." Baroque Works doesn't exactly have the best vet coverage, Amy waved off, unconcerned. "Well, none, really. I'm sure it's just a normal cold." "It's not," the princess insisted. "Even in Baroque Works, I always made sure Karyu had everything he needed to stay healthy, including all his shots. I'm worried this is something from Little Garden." As soon as Vivi said that, Karyu gasped, quickly losing all the food he'd eaten at breakfast. The pirates and princess recoiled at the smell, a flicker of worry crossing Amy's face. "We should check on everyone else," Nami muttered, heading to the door. Amy followed, leaving Sanji and Vivi to care for the sick bird and clean up the mess. The air outside was cold, fine white flakes of snow drifting down from the fluffy clouds above. Koby, Zoro, and Jin were on the deck doing their normal exercises that would make any normal person cry, all while casually talking to each other. Zoro was hanging upside down from the mast doing sit-ups. Nami suspected he'd gotten up there by accident and just rolled with it, while Koby was doing push-ups with Jin curling dumbbells on his back. All three were shirtless and glanced over as the women exited the kitchen. Amy's eyebrows rose appreciatively. "Ah, Amy," Zoro greeted. "Good timing. I need you to act as a weight for me. All the ones we have are too light." "Are you calling me fat?" the blonde demanded. Zoro blinked slowly, not caring about her scandalized expression. "You can change your mass, can't you? That makes you heavier than any of our training weights." "Where is everyone else?" Nami asked, cutting into the conversation. "We need to check on them." "Luffy and Usopp are playing tag below deck," Koby grunted, his arms straining. "I haven't seen Grace today. She might still be in bed." "Story checks out," Amy admitted, knowing how lazy her sister could be. "I'll go get her." "Luffy and Usopp will come to us," Nami commented, eyeing the weather. It wasn't cold enough for snow, but it was falling anyway. "It's just about lunchtime, so Luffy should come running." "Grace." Amy's voice echoed over the ship, causing Nami to jump. Down on the deck, Koby threw Jin off and bolted toward the scream. Nami followed him a moment later, entering behind the rosette as he threw the door to the women's quarters open. Amy was bent over the bed, her arms hesitating as she tried to decide between holding her sister or if the contact would be too much for her. Grace's labored breathing filled the room as the rest of the crew began arriving, the problem clear for all to see. The painter was still in bed, her hair loose and her hat on the bedside table. Her face was covered in the red heat of a bad fever, sweat dripping down her forehead and nose. Her small hands fisted the sheets, her lips pulled back in a grimace of pain. "Shit," Nami cursed. "This isn't good. First Karyu and now Grace. We need to find a doctor." "From where?" Koby questioned, pulling his hand from Grace's burning forehead. "Our log pose is still locked onto Little Garden and you said we're still a week or so away from Alabasta. What's going on?" Luffy asked, pushing his way to the front of the crowd. "We need to find a doctor," Amy supplied. "Grace and Princess Vivi's duck are both sick. There's an island around here somewhere," Nami offered, waving one hand through the air. Crocus mentioned islands having different environments based on the seasons, so I'd bet there's a winter island nearby that's causing that snow. That lines up with the maps of the area I stole from Whiskey Peak. We need to find it. Jin, get to the rudder and take us 14 degrees to port. Roger that, Donna, Jin nodded, hurrying from the room. Usopp, go get a cloth from Sanji and try to bring Grace's fever down. Koby, help me build an area for Karyu in here. Luffy, Karyu is in the kitchen with Sanji and Vivi, so bring him here where we can care for him and Grace together. Will do. Luffy rushed out, the door slamming behind him. The sound caused Grace to flinch, muttering under her breath. Her eyes opened, stopping at barely a squint. "Be big sister?" she whispered, her voice raspy, as Nami and Koby piled blankets in the corner. "What?" "Easy," Amy insisted, equally quietly. "You're sick. No need to work." "No work. Good. Good colors. Viridian. Sell it on. Bubblegum. Bubblegum hair looks good. Good colors." Delirious, Grace drifted back to sleep. "We have to help," Koby muttered as Luffy came in with Karyu over his shoulder. Vivi, Usopp, and Sanji followed him in, making the room somewhat cramped. The sniper passed the cloth in his hand to Amy, who began dabbing her sister's forehead. "I remember my parents would make special food for me when I was sick. Give them meat." Luffy realized, as if he'd had a lightbulb moment. "Meat does have plenty of proteins," Sanji begrudgingly agreed. "That won't be enough to help, though. They aren't sick because of a lack of nutrients. I put a lot more care into the women's food than I do for you morons." "It won't?" Luffy blinked, his mind processing the rest of Sanji's statement. "Wait. Meat isn't the answer to everything," Nami told him, covering the captain's mouth. "Now shut up. You're too loud." "Wah." Karyu whimpered, presumably in agreement. "It must be an infection, then," Vivi deduced. "That's better than a virus at least. It's just a cold or something," Zoro waved off. "I'm sure they'll." However, Zoro was going to finish that statement. He didn't get to, the whole ship shifting to the side, hard enough to throw everyone to the floor. Koby, having more experience on ships than most others and thanks to his position by the bed, managed to catch himself on the frame. His eyes widened, the rosette releasing his hold in favor of catching the suddenly ballistic Grace as the ship threw her from the bed. He fell, the feverish girl on his stomach. She moaned in pain. "The hell is Jin doing?" Nami demanded, pushing herself to her feet and hurrying out onto the deck. Most everyone followed a minute later, Koby, Vivi, and Amy staying behind to tuck Grace back into bed and Karyu back into his nest. Outside, the group was in disarray, some of the snow having frozen into ice on the deck. The ship shifted again, this time in the opposite direction. "Are we under attack?" Usopp fretted, scrambling for the mast. "Jin!" Luffy yelled, pushing his way into the dining room where the rudder's handle was. Jin was slumped over on his knees, fighting against himself to not lean on the handle. His face was flushed, his eyes drooping. "Dedan," he muttered. "What's going on?" Sanji questioned. "Not you too," Nami moaned. "You could show a little more concern, you know," Zoro chastised. "Fine," Jin slurred, pushing himself to his feet. "Trust me. I can." "No you can't," Zoro denied, stepping over to Jin and throwing his friend over his shoulder in a fireman's carry. "Jin, you're sick." "No I'm not," the man tried to deny, though his weak struggling said otherwise. "It's nothing serious. I'll be better in an hour or so." "You've got an infection," Nami told him. "Something from Little Garden, no doubt. On the bright side, it seems like it isn't contagious or everyone would have it by now." "I'll take him to the room," Zoro offered. "Wait." Sanji began, turning to Zoro only to find him and Jin gone despite the door never having been opened. "That moron. This day can't get any worse," Nami swore, writing the Mary's course. "We might have a problem." Usopp's voice, called from outside, immediately proving her wrong. The group, once again, moved out onto the deck. The temperature had dropped considerably since the start of their endeavor, though Luffy seemed unaffected. "What is it now?" Nami demanded, glaring bloody murder up at the sniper in the crow's nest. Usopp cowered at her glare, pointing off the starboard side. Do any of you know how someone can stand on water?" he asked, his teeth chattering. I think my grandpa could. Luffy blinked, cocking his head to the side. I know he could jump off air, so water might be even easier. I kinda wish I learned how. Your grandpa can jump off air? Nami demanded. Yeah, why? I'm guessing because of him, Sanji offered, pointing a lit cigarette at a man on the water. Said man was dressed like a clown from a circus, a bow and a quiver of arrows resting over his shoulders. His mouth looked like a zigzag line, his teeth chattering as he hugged himself for warmth. The crew on the deck stared at him, dumbfounded. Hello, he muttered. It's quite cold, don't you think? You think so? Luffy blinked. Realization dawned on him. Holy crap, it's cold. You only just noticed? Nami groused before turning to face the clown man. And you, what the hell do you want? Oh, The man shuffled, suddenly put on a spot he didn't seem ready for. He lapsed into silence, he and the pirates on the deck staring at each other awkwardly. Is everything okay out here? Koby asked, stepping out of the women's quarters. The crew turned to look at the Rosette, the unknown clown taking the opportunity to tap his foot on the water. A sound echoed, like he was hitting a hollow box of metal. Water surged from below, a whole submarine rising beneath his feet. It rose its own pirate flag, though the skull had a metal jaw. Faster than anyone on the ship could react to this unexpected surprise, the metal ship pulled up alongside the Going Merry and disgorged the men inside, each dressed in what seemed to be a cold-weather uniform. Each was armed with a gun or sword, everyone aimed at the Straw Hats who did not react. We've been boarded, Luffy offered. I'm sorry I asked, Koby muttered. Ha! What a tiny pirate boat. A grating voice commented, a fat man stepping onto the Mary's deck. Much of his body was covered in metal, including his chin and jaw, which were plated in a single sheet of shiny iron or steel. A cape made of the skin of a fuzzy white hippo was tied around his neck and a sword with a hunk of meat skewered on its blade was held on one hand. Well, it's made it this far, so that's something. Whatever. You there. Dashi pointed at Sanji with the sword and meat. Do you have an eternal pose to Drum Kingdom? Never heard of it, the cook answered, taking a drag from his cancer stick. Do you have a death wish? How dare you speak to King Wapol that way? One of the soldiers near Sanji growled, shoving his sword close to the blonde's chest. Disrespecting our king is punishable by death. Boarding our ship isn't cool either, Luffy commented. I'm the captain here, and I want you off my ship. Excuse you? Wapol demanded, taking a massive bite out of both the meat and the blade of the sword. I am a king and you will treat me with the respect I am due by my birthright. Now, if you don't have an eternal pose to Drum, then give me all your treasure and food as compensation for wasting my time. Swallowing, Wapol tossed the rest of the sword, handle and all, into his mouth. That makes my jaw hurt, Koby shuddered, listening to Wapol chew on the sword. You'll never get my treasure. Nami denied, her bow out and formed in a single moment. In a second, she bashed the soldiers around her and the heads, knocking them to the ground with new welts. Then we'll take it by force. Whoa, Usopp gulped, a soldier holding onto a rope at the top of the mast holding him at gunpoint, said gun making the sniper's nose bend. See can't we, just talk about this like see civilized people? Okay, Wapol sighed as if the suggested was an expected but incredibly boring alternative. Man, I'm hungry. Without preamble, the self-proclaimed king expanded his mouth like a snake, his oversized teeth clamping down on a piece of the Mary's railing. The pirates watched with horror as he ripped the railing apart with his mouth and swallowed. That hit the SP. Wapol choked as a man walked in front of him from behind the mast without stopping to bow. Zoro blinked, turning around in confusion. Jin, still over his shoulder, looked shell-shocked. Honestly, how did Usopp reconfigure the insides of the Mary? Zoro questioned without noticing the invading army all around him. Am I delirious? The sick man questioned with a 1,000-yard stare at the deck. What did Aju see? Why was a zebra campaigning for Kevin? Who's Kevin? Jin. You're sick. Shut up. Zoro turned, only then recognizing there were unfamiliar faces. Who the hell are you? What's going on? We've been boarded, Luffy answered once more. He blinked. Oh, right. Don't eat our ship. Everyone, kick them out. Get them. Wapol ordered. Both sides jumped into action, Usopp dropping to his knees to avoid the bullet that passed through where his head had just been before surging upward in an adrenaline-fueled uppercut that launched the soldier off the crow's nest and into the cold waters of the ocean. Down below, Koby jumped, grabbing the railing on the second level as the swords that had tied to cut him in half cut into the door to the women's quarters. We have sick roommates in there. The Rosette growled, shifting into his hybrid mode to drop his greater weight on the soldiers. Other soldiers panicked at Koby's new look, one discharging his gun without properly aiming. The bullet scraped over Koby's crown, leaving a scratch across the right side of his forehead. Koby growled, the rumble coming from deeper in his throat than any human would be able to make. Leave the Mary alone. The sniper yelled, cradling his hand and bruised knuckles. Wapol frowned at the order, going for another bite just to refuse the irate Longnose. In response, Usopp swallowed the pain and readied a pellet in his slingshot. Tabasco star. My tongue. Wapol screamed, the fire coming from his mouth forcing Zoro to jump away from the invading monarch. The king's mouth expanded, clenching his teeth together even as flames still snuck their way out from between his teeth. Without his screaming, however, the fire quickly died out. The king swung his arm toward the mast, the limb transforming into the barrel of a cannon. How dare you make me eat something I didn't want? Wapol cannon. Usopp. Luffy shouted, kicking his assailants away before jumping into the air between the sniper and the king as Wapol fired his cannon arm. Gum Gum Balloon. Stay away from our captain. Zoro, Sanji, Koby, and Nami growled as they interposed themselves between Wapol's army and their captain, Jin still draped over Zoro's shoulder. Usopp, still above them, took pot shots at the men below while dodging arrows from the clown still standing on the metal ship. So you've eaten a devil fruit as well, Wapol mused, a gleam coming to his eye. I wonder, if I eat you whole, will I gain your powers for myself? You gross. Nami complained, braining a soldier with her bow. You won't get the chance. Luffy answered, throwing his arms back. Gum Gum. Giant chomp. With a speed that belied his apparent weight, and likely had something to do with the engines that had formed in his legs, Wapol sped forward and took Luffy's whole torso into his mouth, only the captain's legs and stretched arms out. Wapol grimaced. Chewie. Luffy. The pirates cried. Bazooka. Luffy's muffled voice called, his arms retracting. The force sent Wapol flying into the distance, a couple of teeth left behind on the deck where they had tried to take Luffy along and failed. King Wapol. The army screamed, abandoning their attack to jump back into the submarine and chase the twinkling star in the distance their ruler had become. That was weird, Koby blinked as the door to the women's quarters opened, releasing Amy and Vivi onto the deck. Why are you all being so loud? The blonde demanded. We were boarded. Luffy answered with a smile. That was fun, except for when that guy tried to eat me. What was his name? Waffle or something? Someone tried to eat you? Amy blinked. It was horrifying. Usopp shivered. His jaw unhinged like a snake. But I'm fine, so it's not big deal, Luffy grinned. No, but you will take a bath, Nami ordered. Is Jin sick, too? Vivi asked, rushing over to grab Zoro by the arm. Bring him in, Mr. Bushido. Why didn't you bring him right away? Not dead yet, Jin groaned. That Winter Island should be around here somewhere, Nami offered, glancing at the horizon. It's getting late, though. We should drop anchor for the night and find it in the morning. Where will you and Vivi sleep? Koby questioned as Luffy moved to drop the anchor. We'll figure something out, Nami responded, eyeing Amy as the blonde returned to Grace's bedside. Nami shivered, making a mental reminder to go grab a coat and some extra blankets. Go get some sleep. I get the feeling we'll need it. Land. Koby stalled, trying to remember his short training for what to say while acting as the lookout, a role he was wholly new to considering his new eye transformation because of his zone powers. He could only keep them alone transformed for an hour and a half, but the orientation of his pupils seemed to have a longer range of sight than any other crewmate sans Usopp. Compounding his difficulty was a great distaste of the temperature. Koby wasn't sure why, but he's been growing steadily more irate as the hours in the cold passed. He'd thought Triceratops were warm-blooded, but his heightened dislike of the cold suggested otherwise, without offering any decent proof. Luckily, Kaya had seen fit to stock the Mary with all types of clothes, including winter coats. Koby shook his head to get his mind back on task, focusing on the 5-cylinder-shaped mountains jutting up from the island in the distance. What's the phrase? Land ho. Luffy stopped building snowmen as most of the rest of the crew poured from inside the ship, correcting the Mary's course to approach the island. The salt water of the ocean prevented the water from freezing at large, but the closer they got, the more the water below seemed to turn to slush. Finally, after a half-hour of sailing through a sideways wind, the Going Mary entered the mouth of a river and began following its flow deeper into the island. Luffy, Zoro, Nami, Usopp, Amy, Vivi, and Koby stood scattered over the deck, looking for signs of life while Sanji opted to stay inside to care for the sick. Signs of life did appear after only a few minutes, islanders rising out of the snow on either side of the Mary in a disorganized, if well-timed, band. Unlike the bounty hunters of Whiskey Peak, these people were outright hostile, more than a few guns already aimed at the crew. Zoro, Luffy muttered, locking eyes with the biggest guy of the pack, a man with a green coat and a matching hat. Drop the anchor. Zoro eyed the islanders, raising his hands slowly so they could see his fingers, even if he wasn't going to relinquish his swords. Being sure to make no sudden movements, Zoro stepped over to the anchor, lifted it with one hand, and dropped it into the water. The Mary jolted as she came to a stop. Leave now, the man in green ordered, glaring at the pirates with eyes that seemed to radiate contempt. Your kind is not welcome here. I will not give you a second chance. We only need a doctor. Nami pleaded. We have 3 crewmates who are sick. Please, we don't know how long they'll last. One is only a little girl. Do you expect us to believe that? Bullshit. One of the other islanders demanded. We weren't born yesterday. You didn't even bother to hide your flag. Why would we hide it? Luffy countered. We aren't here to attack you. We just need someone to cure our friends. Please help us. Vivi begged, throwing herself to the deck and bowing toward the man in green. We'll do anything. One of the sick is my best friend. He's been with me for most of my life and I wouldn't be able to live without him. Another is my little sister, Amy added, bowing beside the princess, much to Vivi's surprise. I'd do anything for her, even trade my own life, but I don't have any medical experience. Anything, Luffy agreed, kneeling as well. The rest of the crew took that as a cue, kneeling one by one with Zoro being the last. The man in green sighed, waving his hand. Hesitantly, the rest of the men lowered their weapons. You really don't intend to attack us? The man questioned, though he didn't give the pirates time to answer. My name is Dalton. We will help you, though I can't promise you anything. This island only has one doctor, and she's very hard to find. Bring the sick ashore. I'll lead you to my house for now. We have to take the risk, Luffy responded. Lead the way. With their new guide, the pirates collected their sick and made their way on land. Usopp and Nami opted to stay on the ship to protect it, limiting the number of pirates that would be on the island. Of those going ashore, Amy took charge of carrying Grace, Sanji offered to carry Karyu, and Koby chose to carry Jin, though the difference in height resulted in Jin's feet dragging through the snow. Luffy, Zoro and Vivi, unburdened, took the lead beside Dalton, though Luffy had wrapped one arm around Zoro's wrist at Nami and Koby's behest. "Hey, old guy," Luffy began, drawing angry looks from the natives. "What did you mean when you said there's only one doctor on this island? That sounds like a stupid idea to me." "Captain Luffy, you can't," just Koby began. "We didn't have a choice in the matter," Dalton explained, his eyes on the snow-covered road ahead. The only way the road could be differentiated from not road were the trees that lined either side. The former king put out a decree several months ago when he assumed the throne. He gathered the 20 best doctors in the country and forced them to work for him and him alone. All the others, well, the ones that didn't escape the country were all killed. That's horrible. Vivi raged. No monarch can call themselves a true king if they slaughter their own people. Indeed, Dalton agreed. The 20 MDs didn't have a choice in the matter. If they chose to leave, they would have been killed like all the rest. "What about the people?" Koby asked. "The population can't just stop getting sick." "Sure they can," Zoro shrugged, nearly every eye turning on him. "People don't just not get sick because they want to, Mr. Bushido," Vivi told him. "It worked for me," Zoro responded. "I got sick once during training and I hated it, so I swore to not get sick again and I haven't." Koby blinked. "That's Zoro-sensei, that's not how that works." "Sure it is." Luffy smirked. "Given that that isn't an option for any normal person," Amy cut in, "what did the people do? When that happened, we were forced to grovel at the king's feet and beg for treatment," the green-clothed native muttered, shaking his head. "It was truly the worst time of the country's history." "Was?" Vivi noted. "What changed?" "The island was attacked by pirates. They were a small crew, even smaller than you all, but their strength was beyond anything the army could deal with. There were 5 of them, and their leader called himself Blackbeard. The king, like the coward he was, fled with the 20 MDs and his loyalists into the sea, abandoning us to the pirates' mercy. That." The princess fumed, trying to form words through her haze of anger. "That slimy, yellow-bellied behemoth. That cowardly Ibn Laybat. Moxxagasma. I don't know what you just said, but even I feel insulted." Amy blinked. "I never knew you had that sort of mouth on you." "Can you blame her?" Koby questioned, Vivi covering both her mouth and the embarrassed blush across her cheeks. "You know how she feels about people who don't fulfill their duty." "While I don't understand the language, I agree with the sentiment," Dalton offered. "Currently, we are without a king and are flourishing better than we ever did with him in charge. Should he return, we will do our best to drive him off." "Didn't you say the asshole king took all the doctors?" Luffy asked. "Who's gonna heal my crew if there's no one here who can?" "We do have one doctor still on the island," the native reminded him. "She avoided all the soldiers who came to kill her and has since taken up residence in the king's old castle. That said, many think she's gone crazy and is nothing but a witch considering she was never officially licensed. No normal person can reach the castle, so she comes down whenever she feels like it and treats whoever she finds." "How lovely," Sanji muttered with hearts in his eyes, his brain conjuring the image of a beautiful woman on a broomstick, a pointy hat waving in the breeze. "I bet she had a heart of gold. Once whoever she treated is healed, she'll take whatever she wants and leaves," Dalton finished. Sanji's mental image cracked and shattered, reforming into a monster with green skin, a hooked nose, and warts. "Sounds like a pirate to me," Luffy commented. "Hey, didn't we fight some guy claiming to be a king? Waffle? Do you mean Wapol?" Dalton questioned quickly, freezing. "Yeah, Waffle. No Captain, Wapol," Koby corrected. "Waffle. That's what I said. Waffles. Now I'm hungry." Dalton stopped, forcing the rest of the group to pause. They were very close to town, roofs rising in the distance through the falling snow. "If you are telling the truth, then the former king is on his way back," the local hissed. We are lucky he didn't take an eternal pose when he left, or he would have returned by now. We must warn the patrols." Dalton waved several men over, conversing with them quickly before they ran back the way they had come, only pausing to bow to a bear hiking across an intersection. "There is no guarantee that Wapol will return soon, though I suspect he will. Please follow me. Hopefully, we can get you settled and away before we have to deal with him." Dalton sped up, the pirates being forced to jog to keep up with his longer, more sure stride. He led them to a small cottage on the edge of town. It had no defining features to distinguish it from any other house, suggesting that Dalton, despite the clear reverence the rest of the people showed him, lived modestly. The ensign was similarly simple. The only decoration in the form of two crossed swords and a shield mounted over the fireplace. The man gestured to the bed as he moved to the fireplace. Amy eyed him warily, expecting the man to reach for the swords and try to cut them down, but Dalton simply lowered himself and began lighting the wood that was sitting in the fireplace. Soon, flames licked at the cold air, warming the insides of the hut in conjunction with the collective body heat of the group. Satisfied that Dalton wouldn't turn on them in the immediate future, Amy tucked Grace into the only bed. Karyu sat in the corner by the fire, the best place to dry his feathers of the melted snow, while Jin pushed himself off Koby and staggered over to a chair by a small table. "Take it easy, Jin," Koby tried. "Not that bad," the man muttered, trying to sit up to prove he was fine. The act showed that he was anything but, a pained grimace on his lips as he was forced to squint at the fire. "Don't get yourself killed because of your pride," Sanji warned, a look from Dalton halting the lighter halfway to the cigarette in his mouth. He sighed, accepting the unspoken no-smoking rule. "We've had this song and dance before. Thank you for letting us stay here," Vivi diverted, giving another short bow to the native. "Don't worry about it," Dalton waved off. "Rather, you should worry about yourselves. A group this big and not one of you has any medical training? That's just suicide." "Nami tried everything she knew," Koby responded. "That was enough to get by before. We thought we'd just pick up a doctor, when we found one," Luffy shrugged. "The old guy with the whale didn't want to come, though, and we haven't found one since." "The who?" Dalton blinked. Never mind. You all can stay here until Kuro comes through. I need to ready the men for Wapol's return." "Is that the name of the witch doctor lady?" Luffy asked. "That sounds pirate. Why? Maybe she'll join us." "When will she be here?" "I don't know," Dalton shrugged, throwing his winter gear back on. "She could come through today or she could come through a week from now." "That won't do," Amy denied. "My sister could be dead by that point. We can't just sit around and wait. If they want to live, then that just have to not be sick anymore." "Shut up, Zoro. The doctor lives on the mountain, right?" Koby asked, a light bulb clicking in Luffy's head. "Probably the middle one. If we don't know when she'll come to us, then we'll just go to her." Luffy smiled. Dalton gaped at the behatted teen, Luffy chuckling to himself as if he just solved a big puzzle in record time. "You have no idea how tall or how steep the drum rockies are," Dalton stated. "There is no possible way you could climb those yourself while carrying the sick. Not only that, but there are Lapans around that would tear you apart without a moment's hesitation. So we'll fight them off," the captain shrugged. "Earlier, you said no normal person can get to the castle, but we aren't normal. We are the Straw Hat Pirates, and I'm going to become the king of the pirates. There's no way me and my crew would ever let some stupid mountains stand in our way." The room seemed to brighten with Luffy's speech, leaving Dalton shocked at the air of acceptance the rest of the teen's crew was showing. For a moment, even he believed what the boy was saying, that he would be the one crowned with the legendary title in the future. "What's the plan, Luffy?" Sanji grinned, bringing the room back to the present. "We can't all go up the mountain together. Me, Koby, Sanji, and Zoro will go climb the mountain," Luffy began. "Denied," Amy interrupted. I am not just going to stay here and twiddle my thumbs while you carry my sick sister into the unknown. But Vivi can't go up the mountain, Koby responded, Dalton jumping at the name. We can't leave her alone in the village, even if she has combat experience. Then leave Zoro here, the woman argued. If you took him, he'd just get lost anyway. I've heard all the stories. That's a good point, Sanji nodded. The stupid moss is worse than a broken compass. You wanna say that to my face, you ugly dartboard? But they're right, Luffy laughed as the cook and swordsman growled at each other. Okay, we'll leave Zoro and Vivi here while the rest of us head up the mountain. Sanji can carry Karyu since he doesn't fight with his arms, and Koby can carry Jin and Grace since he's a dinosaur now. Did you say Vivi? Dalton asked. Most of the crew froze, glancing at each other. As in Vivi Nefertari? Can we please just get my sister to a doctor? Amy diverted. And don't you have a disgraced king on the way? Dalton fizzled. Right. First things first. Just be careful. You all seem like decent people. Dalton hurried out of his cottage, shouting orders to the people outside before he was even through the door. Vivi let out a relieved breath she hadn't realized she was holding in. Thank you, Amy, the princess said, turning to see that the blonde was already in the process of helping Grace out of the bed. I didn't do it for you, the former agent grunted. Every second we're here, arguing is another one my sister might not survive, and while I don't know who Wapol is, if he's a threat, the natives can at least slow him down and weaken him before he gets to us. Damn, that's cold, Zoro commented. My allegiance is to Grace, Amy rebuffed. I don't care about Wapol or the villagers. She's right about one thing, Koby piped up. We need to get going sooner rather than later. Someone grab Jin while I go outside and change. He paused. That didn't come out right. Shh. Luffy laughed. All right, everyone. Let's go. The group stepped out of the door, Vivi taking a moment to check that the fire was completely contained lest they accidentally allow Dalton's house to burn. By the time she exited, Koby was in his full Dino mode, Jin already propped on his upper back while Luffy and Sanji helped position Grace safely between him and Koby's crown. Amy, in contrast, was glaring daggers at the Triceratops. I'm watching you, Pinky, the blonde vowed, a little too close to Koby's face. One wrong move and I will end you. Grace is my friend and my crewmate, Koby shot back. She isn't going to die if I have anything to say about it. Alright, let's go. Luffy cheered as Sanji hoisted Karyu onto his shoulder. The captain and Chocolate Ear led the way, Sanji behind them and Koby bringing up the rear with a gallop. Considering the size of the town of Bighorn, the quartet and Darrow left the town's borders in minutes, leaving Zoro and Vivi behind. Good luck, Vivi whispered as the group vanished into the infinite white of the snowy landscape. You're not seriously worried about them, are you? Zoro grunted, the blue-haired woman turning to stare at him. Luffy's pulled through a lot of ridiculous stunts. He'll get them there. I guess so, Vivi muttered. It's just things work out until they don't. It only takes one wrong move and all the luck that has carried you is gone. There were so many times where Igaram and I were almost found out since we joined Baroque Works, and these last couple of times have only been luck, like Miss All Sunday not reporting us when she knew and you all showing up when you did. Even now, Igaram is worrying about it isn't going to do any good, Zoro shrugged, dropping to sit beside Dalton's hut. He rested his 3 swords against his shoulder. What are you doing, Mr. Bushido? What does it look like? I'm taking a nap. Wake me up if anything interesting happens. You know, I never hated the snow until now, Koby muttered, the group still moving at a light jog through the deep snow. Flakes drifted from the clouds above, periodically getting swept into a cold wind that beat against them. On the bright side, if one could call it that, the cold temperatures should help keep their sick passengers' fevers down. Suck it up, you little bitch, Amy hissed, using her powers sparingly lest a gust of wind carry her off. because she couldn't just float like she was used to. The muscles in her legs were screaming at her, having atrophied from the need to only carry her short distances. It was a problem she swore to correct after they got off this island. Amy is beautiful when she's insulting Koby. Sanji sang. "You've been on my ass ever since we met," the dinosaur growled, his nerves frayed by the cold only barely kept at bay by the body heat of the two humans on his back. "I don't know what I did to get on your bad side, and frankly, I can't be made to give a shit right now in the middle of this storm, but grilling me isn't going to make our job easier. The only thing worse than your attitude would be if this storm got heavier." Even as Koby spoke, the softly falling snow grew heavier, the wind picking up into a constant howl that buffeted the group. The once beautiful snowflakes turned into the non-lethal equivalent of frozen daggers. "You just had to say something," Amy groused, increasing her mass to keep from blowing away. "Goat it, damn it," the rosette agreed. "I blame you," the blonde muttered. "That's fair." Luffy, mostly unaffected by the cold, couldn't help but laugh. This could be good for the crew, Sanji tried as the quartet started into a denser part of the forest, each being forced to dodge trees hidden by the snowstorm until they were right on top of them. "How?" Amy demanded, Luffy still enjoying himself. "All this snow will make the women more beautiful. That's all you care about?" Koby yelled. "How the hell is that even supposed to work? The old geezer once told me that women from winter islands all have smooth skin as white as fresh snow. They are constantly rubbing themselves from the cold, which makes their skin as smooth as porcelain, and the snow bleaches their skin until it's the same color." "Who's the old geezer that told you that bullshit?" Amy growled. "Winter island women look the same as any other women." "You're stupid, Sanji." Luffy laughed. "They don't look like porcelain. You don't even know what porcelain is, shitty rubber." The cook shot back. He rushed Luffy, intent on giving his captain a good kick to try to set his brains right, narrowly missing the shadow that passed through the air where he'd been. Luffy backflipped away from Sanji's kick, the wind carrying him over Koby in the back. "That was fun." The raven-haired teen grinned. "We should do that more once we find the Dr. Pirate Lady." "Gah!" Koby gasped, a sudden pain hitting his side. His cry caught the attention of his lucid crewmates, Luffy rushing to his side to see what was wrong. Latched onto Koby's flank by a mouth of razor-like teeth was a small, white rabbit, its beady red eyes glaring at everyone as Koby's blood dripped down its jaw. "The rabbit of death." Luffy gasped, pointing at the animal. "Yes, it told stories about you. Get it off." The Zone yelled. For once, Amy came to his rescue, her umbrella swinging like a bat. With it, she punted the rabbit into the snowstorm. Koby grit his teeth as the Lipan's forceful ejection took several of his scales with it. "Ow. Suck it up, baby. You say that after getting mauled by a saber-toothed rabbit." "I'm guessing that was one of the Lipans Dalton mentioned," Sanji offered. "Think you can keep going, Koby?" "Yeah," the dinosaur sighed. "It's shallow, so it looks worse than it is. Plus, the cold is causing my veins to contract, so there should be less blood flow. Still hurt, though. When did you learn about injuries like that?" Sanji wondered. Zoro-sensei's lessons covered more than just swinging a sword, you know. It's not like we want to kill everyone because we can't control our weapons. "Let's keep going," Luffy ordered, eyeing the snow around them with an air of seriousness the crew rarely saw from him. They suspected that had to do with the fact that Lipan had just attacked and hurt one of their group. "Amy, you and I are on pout here on out." Amy blinked. "You mean on point?" "Yeah, that. Let's go." Now a little more serious than they had been, the group pressed on into the storm. "Your pacing is making it hard to sleep," Zoro muttered, one eye opening to watch Vivi as the princess turned, her feet retracing the circle she'd worn into the snow over the last 20 minutes. "Honestly, you're just going to tire yourself out. Go inside." "I can't just stay inside while everyone else is dealing with this cold," the princess rebuffed, pausing to gaze at the swordsman. Zoro had been so still that there was a layer of snow building on his knees and head, but the cold didn't seem to bother the man in the least. And if something happens, there's no guarantee I'd be able to hear it inside. Suit yourself. The pirate shrugged. Just don't start crying when your toes turn blue. How can you be so relaxed? Our friends are in the middle of a snowstorm with any number of dangers. Weapons, the mountain, the cold, Amy. I didn't trust her before and I still don't trust her now, you know. She's loyal to her sister and not the crew, Zoro interrupted, shocking the princess. So you know? Yeah, she hasn't exactly been quiet about it, Zoro answered with a sigh. Listen, the spring pet is one of the sick. As long as we are her best chance of survival, Amy will do everything she can to keep us alive like any other crew member, and trust me, that's one of the first steps to becoming loyal to Luffy and the crew. I don't understand, Vivi admitted, walking over to sit beside the swordsman. Were you the same way when you joined? You could say that, the verdict shrugged. Luffy blackmailed me into joining the crew. I was tied up in a marine base and he said he wouldn't give me back my swords unless I joined him. Here I am, but I was talking about how Nami joined. Luffy beat up a fishman named Arlong, Vivi nodded. Luffy told me about it on Little Garden. That wasn't half of it, Zoro snorted. The witch stole the Mary while we were fighting another pirate crew even though she'd been traveling with us for a while. We chased her down and I thought it was just to get the ship back, but Luffy, the moron, decided he wouldn't accept anyone other than the witch. She is not a witch, Vivi insisted. You can't just keep calling her that, Mr. Bushido. I'm in so much debt, I'll call her whatever the hell I want, the swordsman responded. Anyway, the point I'm making is that when Luffy decides to do something, he does it, and when he invites someone to the crew, they have to be spoken for or they have no way out. You really think? Vivi's question was cut off by a local shouting something in the distance. The voice was muffled and distorted by the wind, but they seemed to be getting closer, if the rising of the voice's volume was any indication. Eid. Kura and her monster are there looking for patience. Take your sick to cocoa weed. The villagers' words grew muffled once more as they vanished down another street, repeating their information again for those who might need it. Vivi's eyes widened, as the words faded, the princess grabbing Zoro by the arm and dragging him to his feet. Come on, Mr. Bushido. We have to go find her. Why? Zoro grumbled, brushing the snow off himself now that he was standing. The others are already on their way to her house or whatever. She'll find them then. Or she could choose to spend the night, the Blinette argued. She lives on top of the mountain, and if the others get there as she isn't, they might leave. Or they might have used up all their strength getting there. Any number of things could happen if we don't tell the doctor about Luffy and the others. Fine, Zoro growled, slipping his swords into the loop on his coat. I guess sitting around here was getting boring anyway. Chocolate wheat or whatever, right? Get the feeling it's this way. Come on, I'll get us there in no time. Nami, I'm getting bored, Usopp whined, knocking on the door to the navigator's map room. There was little to do on the small boat with most of the crew gone and he'd already patched up the railing where that hungry Wapol had munched on Mary. With those repairs done and his usual playmate gone, he'd taken to scampering up and down the mast for fun, but even that lost its charm when everything around them looked the same. Usopp waited for a few seconds, receiving no answer. He knocked again. Come on, Nami. I know you're in there. Do you want to build a snow? Go away, Usopp. Meanie. The sniper snapped. There's nothing to do and we can't leave Mary here and go on land without hiding her. You didn't want to go on land before, Nami breathed, finally opening the door. A half-finished map laid on the desk behind her, a paperweight in the shape of a beret sign keeping it in place as a strong wind blew into the room. If you can come up with a better excuse for us to move the Mary, then we can go on land. Until that happens, I'm going to keep working on my maps. But Usopp didn't get to finish, the navigator shutting the door in his face. She wouldn't be so mean, it was her that was sick, Usopp grumbled to himself, walking over to the railing. I bet she'd end up liking it, though. Luffy probably would have carried her himself. The long-nosed teen sighed, leaning against the railing as he sat on the deck, left alone to his own thoughts. You know, Mary, sometimes I wonder about my place on this crew, Usopp admitted, talking as if the ship understood his words. The Mary creaked, but that couldn't have been anything but chance. Even so, the sniper took it as a go-ahead. I get the feeling I'm the weakest one here. Or at least, I'm the weakest one from the East Blue. We don't know what Grace can really do, but she's got Grand Line experience. Koby started off as the wimp, but now he's completely surpassed me in every way except shooting. Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Jin could wipe the floor with me without breaking a sweat. Nami doesn't exactly fight, but she's pulled us through the worst storms I've ever seen. And Amy. I don't even know where to start with how much she scares me. Usopp sighed again, drawing his knees into his chest. What should I do, Mary? I just feel useless. Sometimes, I wonder if Luffy only let me join, because Kaya and Mary gave you to them. The ship creaked again, a gust of wind dislodging a clump of snow from the top of the mast. The powder pile landed on top of the moping sniper, sending a shiver down his spine at the cold. Maybe he was going crazy, but something told him the Mary had done that on purpose. But that was just a ridiculous thought that he tossed aside. Sure, he just spent time spilling his guts to their ship, but she was just a ship. Ships don't come to life. Jumping to his feet, Usopp shook the snow off himself only to have to step away as another clump of snow fell where he'd been standing, confused. Usopp's eyes trailed along the mast and the crossbeam on alert for any more surprises. Finding none, the sniper started to relax until something caught his eye way out near the mouth of the river. Now, he prided himself on his eyesight and nearly dismissed it as a trick of the light, but he'd rather check and find nothing considering his instincts were telling him that danger was afoot. Lowering his goggles to his eyes and adjusting the lenses, it only took a few seconds before the submarine from before came into view on the very end of his vision, far enough away that no normal person would be able to see clearly. Well, at least he had a better excuse. Nami! Usopp yelled, rushing to her door once more. The orange-haired girl had not locked it, so he let himself in. That Waffle King guy is on his way here. You can't be. Nami trailed off, recognizing that the sniper was not telling one of his tall tales. Eyes widening, Nami replaced her pen into her inkwell and followed Usopp out onto the deck. He could try to eat the Mary again if we aren't careful. Should we head further upriver? Usopp suggested, already using the anchor's pulley system rather than brute force like the others do. That's a good idea, Nami acknowledged. She paused. You wanted to go on land, right? Once the Mary is hidden, I don't think we have a choice. We need to let the others know that Wapol is back. Usopp, remind me that we need to get some baby den-dens at some point. Goda knows we need a way to get in contact with Luffy or Zoro if they wander off. I think you mean when they wander off, Usopp corrected. You and I both know they will always find ways to get themselves lost no matter where we are. Nami paused. Yeah, you got me there. Now, if I'm right, there should be a little nook a ways upriver where we can hide the Mary, and the snow should cover her soon enough so she blends in. Let's get going. End of chapter 8. Yeah.